All right, this is the confrontation call, and I have to say some legal stuff real quick before we get into it. And first off, it's this. They agreed. Everybody on the call agreed for it to be recorded. Everybody knew it was going to be recorded. On the recording, I'm acknowledging it's being recorded. They all consented to it. Even more than that, it was actually Gary's side that demanded that this call be recorded. And I thought to myself, are they crazy? They want to record this call? Okay, because I don't illegally record stuff. And I thought, well, if that's what they want, we'll record it. But I made it clear, and then this is in the recording, that this recording is for accountability, public accountability for either myself or for Gary, one way or the other. It's coming. That is, there is no real cause for suggesting that this recording was somehow meant to be private, or that there wasn't consent, or that there wasn't acknowledgement that it was meant to be for public accountability. I also want to add that we mentioned a transcript. This transcript that we refer to was from a meeting that Peter McHugh had with the board of a church called GCC. Now, this is a little bit of a confused moment, and we clarified it after the call between me and the guys. But the GCC thing, it was, to my knowledge, it was not a transcript at all. It was notes that were written down, quotes that were written down during a meeting, but not a transcript of a recorded meeting. So that's, I'm saying this for legal reasons, okay? Because like somebody might want to try to make a stink legally, and we have to try to cover our bases. Now that's not me who would do that, but I don't know, somebody else might. So this is the confrontation call, and we're submitting it to the public record for full accountability. I wish some leaders had just stuck their necks out and done the right thing, because none of this would have been necessary. This is not the best way to do things. It's just where we're at now.
You should have heard it say that it's recording in progress. And so I'll just say thank you, Daniel. I see you're here. If you just wanted to be here to witness, you're welcome to do that. If you want to share, you're welcome to do that. Okay, so it's up to you. Everybody can control their own selves, and I respect that. So, the purpose of this meeting is because I tweeted out or put on social media in a few different places that Gary, that you were guilty of faking prophecy. And I did this because I had conviction that I'd already seen a significant amount of evidence to demonstrate that this was true. And then I was contacted by Peter, who reached out and wanted to connect and talk about it and actually arrange a meeting so we could discuss it. And since then, basically, we've gone back and forth with Peter, Alyn, and stuff like that. And what I would like us to do, since I know everyone on this meeting has already been down this road before, right? I'm the only one who hasn't been down this with you guys. I prefer total transparency, and I don't like doing artificial kindness to the point where you can't tell what anybody's saying or what's going on, that kind of stuff. So I just really want to be super transparent. We love the church, we love integrity and truth. There is a major problem of fakery in the charismatic church right now. It's an insane problem that's going on for generations, and has largely been unaddressed from those in the movement. Only people outside who were dismissed as heretic hunters and heresy hunters and stuff like that. And Gary, the evidence that was mounted against you looks pretty strong, and I'm open to hearing some other side of it. But I have seen a lot of stuff myself already, including other stuff. In fact, I think that I've been misled in my email exchanges even already with some of the guys that I would say are your team, Alyn and Peter. So I'm putting that right out there. You're also welcome to put out there any kind of concerns, allegations against me if you've got them, and I'm all ears. No one's above reproach and above the potential of being reproached in that regard. So the purpose of this meeting then is to either establish that I need to go and say, guys, I'm super sorry. I just besmirched this guy's character, hurt his ministry, and I would make that super public with a groveling apology. And if I was convinced it was true, I'd endorse your character and your ministry. On the other hand, if this has been not only the egregious fakery of the past, but ongoing cover up with allies doing this for you, and then causing others to hold you accountable to actually have to apologize. If that's the case, then that escalates things the other direction. So that's the stakes. So I'm just putting it straight out there with you guys. We'll just talk like adults, and I want to pass the ball first, if I can, to Gary, and say, Gary, what is your position on all of this stuff? Where do you did this stuff happen in the past? Did you do it? Did you cover it up? Have you been slandered, misrepresented? Maybe you can just share, and we'll just let you talk for a minute.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah, I think there's a level of slander and accusation that's not true. And this is hard for me because again, this is something I've had to carry 10 years, and it's when this came out, 10 years ago, I was open and willing to meet with Nathaniel and Haley and those that brought accusation. And I didn't data mine. I haven't data mined, and I don't need to data mine in that sort of sense. And my heart has always been for the church. It's been for the church. It's been for the body of Christ. It's been for the integrity of the prophetic. And that's where I've always landed and always been in that place, Mike. And so,
Okay, and so you've never you never looked up people's information to some people would say enhance a prophetic word, or some people call it cheating. I would consider those kind of actions blasphemy against the name of God to
yep,
fake a prophetic
no,
anything.
I
Yeah.
absolutely agree with you there. And for me, prophetic ministry has been something I've been in 20 plus years and have needed to enhance, haven't felt under pressure, and haven't needed to do things that have, would be blasphemous and against the Lord. I feel the Lord too much and love the church too much to do that.
Mhm. So if we can, I'd like to revisit some of the past, then those particular allegations and stuff like that. And so I don't know if Nathaniel or Chris would like to share first.
Yeah, up to you, Mike. Would you like us to? What would you prefer?
That'd be wonderful. I think if you could share some of the particular evidences again that were looked at to me that seem from at this moment, and I'm open to hear other things here, but it looks like an incredibly strong and convincing case that that the data mining is exactly what happened.
Yeah, we could definitely share that. And Chris, you can jump in.
Yeah, happy to jump in.
Yeah. And for us, we'll do our best to walk through this. It's not something we have spoken much of for the last decade, but we'll just try keep it to the facts as best we can. So in 2015, November 2015, my role at the time was on media and live stream at Glory City Church. At the time, they held a conference, a prophetic conference, of which Gary was a speaker. I was not at the session that he was speaking at. It was another member in my team. And I just remember when debriefing with this member, they said something that just stood out to me. They said, marveled at Gary's gift and accuracy, mentioned that he had called out names and dates. And for myself, we've always loved the prophetic, and being at Catherine's church on staff are no strangers to what's possible in the prophetic. But the next thing they said was, as a joke, pretty much, he was so accurate. Unless he was looking up on Facebook, and kind of laughed and then moved on in his conversation. For me, it was just enough to remember, but I didn't think much of it. Later, when I was reviewing the session, part of my role, I did notice a pattern with Gary's words that seemed very specific on names, dates, and certain visuals. And being on the media team, like, obviously integrity is really important to me. If there's a miracle testimony that comes through, just to double check the facts. It's part of the role. And it bothered me, even the thought of it, as much as it's bothered everyone else. And honestly, the thing I did next was to quickly debunk it for myself, believing it not to be possible. I didn't know what data mining even meant back then. I was in my early 20s. And I simply, while reviewing the session, did what I thought someone may do if they were to be data mining, jumped on Facebook and looked at an event we had. At the time, Glory City Church had an event, and people would usually select on Facebook attending. And there were about 300 people, I believe. Is that right?
I can't remember.
I think
it was a lot, though.
And I just simply went along as Gary's giving the words out, again, wanting to pretty much disprove it to myself, thinking maybe there'll be a bit of overlap. You kind of expect that. There might be a few names or dates that overlap. That's fine. Honestly, my expectation was a couple of words in to move on and be like, hey, this is all good. But it did become concerning fairly quick when I would go through and there'd be a name mentioned or a date mentioned and then a word, and one by one it correlated with people who had clicked attending on the event. And I felt quite sick to the stomach at even the thought of it. And then it started to be people who were not in the room, but had selected the event. And again, it would be like a date, a name, and then a certain picture that usually was right up on the wall of their Facebook page. And it started to become more concerning as I went through it. Finally, by the time I got to the end, 12 out of 15 words were people on the event. There were 500 people in the building, I believe, and 300 people on the event. I kind of expected that there might be a few not on the event. There was only 3 left out of the full 15 words, and 2 of those were simply just a name or a date. There wasn't enough to know for sure, but there was one, a Sarah King, who was a friend of ours, and she had spina bifida, and she was not on the event. And for me, that was like, okay, at least there's one. Don't overreact here. I shared it with my wife, Haley, that night, a little bit concerned, but also not really wanting to believe something like that at that point, but I was at least concerned. I shared it with you.
And Sarah, as my good friend, when I asked her, about the conference, she said that she was actually babysitting Gary's child. And she'd met him in the hallway earlier. That's what she said. And
also your reaction when I first told you about my concerns.
Yeah, I didn't believe it at first. I didn't think it was very likely. I believed it to be genuine prophetic words, but I started looking into the specific words just like Nathaniel did, and the more names that we went through, the more alarmed I started to feel, and the more concerned I started to feel.
If I can just add that when he met Sarah that time in the hallway, he specifically asked for her name. That's what and he didn't think. That's how she tells it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah. Honestly, Haley's usually the grounded one. I was kind of hoping to hear like you probably overreacted. Don't worry about it. To be honest, but with that being, Sarah had already had her name asked of her before the session started and was babysitting the kid. It suddenly became that every single person on the list that we saw was either attending the event or like Sarah. And we, again, at this stage, I didn't have a grid for this. Chris lived at Catherine Ronaldo's house at the time. I lived next door to them. We were all very close. So I think Chris was over our house. I think we started to just quickly share the concern with Chris, hoping that we'd be able to bring it to Catherine. Over to you, Chris.
Yeah, so I came over to their place, and they're like, this couldn't be right, is it? And we just went through them one by one. And I said, well, let's have a look. And it was interesting that if there was something brought up about one of the girls playing guitar, well, her cover photo was a guitar, or another word about a girl dancing, her literal cover photo. Like you really didn't have to go very far. All the information was there, and it was enough to, I guess, say it's concerning. Of course, there's always that element of, well, Holy Spirit could tell you things that are on Facebook. There's a lot on Facebook. And, we spoke to Catherine. She didn't want to believe it. She had a relationship with Gary. And said, no, I know Gary, this can't be right. This can't be true. We also were speaking with another leader there at the time, Joel Shaw. He didn't believe it. He's like, no, couldn't be. So Catherine didn't really express any interest to want to discuss it or go further with it or have any involvement with it. Felt like it was a waste of our time or a distraction, a lot of these things. What was good was that Joel believed it and was in Gary's camp. And we weren't sure. Obviously, we wanted to believe Gary. He's a lovely, likable personality, and we were enjoying his company when he would come and minister. So So we didn't want to believe it, but we wanted to find a disproof. And Joel's strong position that this isn't right presented a 3-month back and forth that took place, where, you know, it would be like, okay, what about this meeting over here, this HIM conference? There was no attending list. There was nowhere to click attend. So how does he know who's going to be there? And then we're like, oh, that's a good one. And then we'd go back through and we'd realized every person that was prophesied over were people in our team or that church's team. And it was all people that you could quite confidently guarantee that he knew would be there. We literally came away saying, wow, wasn't our team blessed? Like, God really blessed our staff at this other church meeting that we were at. So it was like suspicious. Again, it wasn't like oh, okay, cool, he's just got a bunch of random people with no way to know who was there. It was very honed in on people that you could confidently assume would be there. Another example was a word that Joel found that he said, okay, he literally gave details for an address here. He said, you go, I'm seeing this road and you're going down this house. And Joel was just looking for one, mind you. In his mind, one way that you couldn't access it online would debunk everything, which I'm not so sure that is applied sound logic, but that's what he was looking for, and he found one. And Nathaniel was looking, and there was no way to find that on Facebook. After a bit, Nathaniel managed to find those details in a Google search. It was like second result, I believe. You could find this guy's information. So this is 3 months of back and forth with, in my opinion, only strengthening the plausibility of this scenario. So, yeah, and then leading us to, leading the creation of this fake Facebook account as a bit of a fleece to God and a bit of a confirmation. I'm not sure. I'd be very interested to hear from Peter or Alyn as to what it is that they would need if a scenario like this was to happen, and what it is that they feel like they would need to see. Because for us, that was kind of what we would need to see, and then that happened. So, yeah.
I'm not sure. Sorry, Nathaniel.
That's okay. I could. Sorry, did you want to go? Go for it.
Yeah, I was just seeking clarity on Chris's question. What was your question, Chris?
My question was, what is it that you would need to see if somebody came to you and said, we're very confident that this situation is happening, someone's data mining on Facebook, what would do it for you?
Yeah. It's a great question, Chris. It mirrors a question I was just thinking of what would it take Mike? So my question is to Mike. Mike, one of the things I've been thinking as we plan on meeting is, what would it take you, Mike, to think that, or to believe that Gary isn't guilty of these things?
Just the falsification of the evidence that's been presented.
The falsification.
If you get the victim's finger, or the perpetrator's supposed accused, if you get their fingerprints on the murder weapon, what would you need to undo that? Well, you would need to show how they got on the weapon that was unrelated to the murder. You got to falsify the evidence somehow. And what we have is a number of examples of information that appear to have come from Facebook, confirming not only the data is consistent with stuff on Facebook, right, which is already very anomalous, but the people having checked in or been associated with the event, or the person's name being known. Then we have someone could call it entrapment. I think it was a godly, righteous thing to do, to create that Facebook page and say, hey, this could exonerate the guy. This could go either way. And then all of a sudden he gives a word that looks like it comes right from the page. Then there's an email that shows up. That Google account gets deleted when people start asking questions about it being associated with Gary. And then all of a sudden he's like, I got hacked and all this stuff. And everything about that, it seems like the most plain on your face thing is that Gary's absolutely guilty, and you guys are empowering him to do it and oppressing the people who want to hold him accountable. That's what this looks like.
And what was the last word? Pressing people?
Oppressing.
Oppressing.
Yeah. Gary, you guys, I have sat across from person after person in this process. I sat across from Chris Reed. who tried to schmooze me, and he lied through his teeth. And the only reason I knew he was lying through his teeth is because I knew more than he knew I knew, right? I held information back because I wanted to find out if truth would be shared. And it's become easier for me to go, yeah, it is possible for people to do this kind of grift where they feel empowered and they think, but there's so much good being done, it's okay. Or I'm just trying to sort of kickstart the work of the Holy Spirit, or whatever they think they tell themselves. I don't know. But I do know that this is overwhelming evidence that in the eyes of just about any reasonable person, it would be like, Gary, you have to have an incredibly good explanation for this. It's not a vacuum. It's not just an accusation. There's a flood of evidence.
I'm not trying to smooth you, Mike, and again, not trying to deceive or be deceptive. My process has always been my process in words of knowledge and in prophetic ministry, and in 20 years, of prophetic ministry, there's no pressure for me having to come up with stuff, and there's words I've had that absolutely have no connection to information and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I'm not here to do that.
So, Gary, maybe you could answer this. Like, why did that email trace back to your account?
It didn't.
Can you explain that? It didn't. Can you explain that to me?
Well, the email that again I've been accused of sending, that email was sent while I was having dinner with Catherine and Tom, and so that email was sent at 8:50 while I'm in the middle of a dinner, and so I don't know how I could send an email and have dinner at the same time.
Okay, I'm not. You're a tech guy and you don't know how to send an email at a different time than you type the email?
That feature didn't exist until 2019. Gmail didn't introduce that feature until 3 years later.
Really? So you guys have looked into this. What else have you not shared with me then? Just tell me the stuff, because here's a claim from you, right? I was eating dinner at that time. Okay. I don't know if that's true or not. I also know that there's ways to delay an email. Now I'd have to go and validate whether there was a way to do it back in 2016 or not, which I assume there was. But then I wouldn't know how to validate whether you were having dinner at that time, or if you didn't stop and go to the bathroom for 5 minutes, or anything else. So this does not constitute evidence or an explanation that I can validate.
And I think what you're pointing to, Mike, is, and maybe Pete wants to jump in because I'm new to this, I wasn't there at the time, but I think everything that we're pointing to is the need for the forensic examination, because you're right, Mike. Any reasonable, objective observer would come to a similar conclusion as the one you're coming to. Like, hey, this looks ridiculous. And you can say things like, well, it appeared that Welsh Eagle was the recovery email for Sarah's email. But you can, and Gary, God bless him, thank you for screenshotting this, put in multiple emails and you get the same response from Google saying, oh, a security code has been sent to this email. And Nathaniel as well, in his note to the forensic examiner, was like, actually, the link between Welsh Eagle as a backup email address is not actually that valid.
That valid? What does that mean? Could I talk to that guy?
Nathaniel? Yeah.
It was Nathaniel that said it wasn't valid?
Yeah.
No, that wasn't my words. You've got the document there. It's the same document that's been available for the last 10 years. We haven't put anything else down. But I guess we are talking about quite a few things that do pertain to us. Mike, would you like us to share just what happened?
That'd be great.
With next step? Because for us, where we're at with the story so far, we were all deeply concerned. But as Catherine rightfully mentioned in a meeting we had,
before you go down that line, could I interject? Just, Nathaniel, when you said those were not my words,
Yes.
I had an email from you on 22nd of July, 2016. Yeah. Would it be appropriate for me to read that email in reference to the verifiability?
I'll just say, I've always been transparent with this. And so my words on that, from what I remember, and I imagine you'll read this out, was that he couldn't be absolutely identified. And I've held that to this day. But the things I'm about to share, and I have always held to those, I believe it's consistent with the document, are three reasons, that we believe the email is highly likely to be connected to Gary. I've never stated on the record that it unequivocally is, but what is clear is what I could talk about in a few minutes, if that's okay. You're more than welcome to read that.
Just hearing you say, hey, no, I did say it wasn't 100% verifiable. That's what I pointed to. Mike asked, hey, can I speak to the guy? And that was you. And I had
Alyn, the phrase that jumped out to me was that it was not that accurate. Which is a way of saying something's inaccurate, so that the identification of the email with him is inaccurate. And that would be news to me and not consistent with what I've heard so far.
Well, let me just read this paragraph then, so we're all on the same page. And I'm not paraphrasing Nathaniel.
Great.
In our previous document sequence of events, it is stated in section 18 that there's a possible link between the Sarah Lamb email address and welscheagle@gmail. Please notify the investigator that the Sarah Lamb email address may or may not be linked with Welsh Eagle, as Ben's friend was not able to verify a definite link between them. This information is not...
The word I was looking for. Sorry, I'm not real good with spelling. I would have been trying to say definitively.
Okay. This information is not 100% verified, as it would be illegal to do so. If this link was 100% verified by the investigator, it would settle the case. But if no link is found between Sarah Lamb and Welsh Eagle, we believe it does not prove anything, as there are many ways to create an email. Therefore, it may not be worth having the investigator spend any great deal of time looking into this. So I just wanted to make sure that we weren't leaning into this as like, this is our silver bullet. When
Yeah. Well, if I can even just take it back, Alyn.
Sorry, real quick, I want to just make this clear.
Yeah.
Alyn and Peter, you guys are convinced that email was not made by Gary, not sent by Gary, or in association with Gary, by him or someone helping him.
I'm not convinced of anything in here, Mike. I think I've held that position all the way along. I hear two sides of a story, that people are presenting different interpretations of things that I don't understand, because I'm not a technologically orientated person. And so, as I've indicated all the way along, I'm very open to the thought that Gary is guilty. I've made that clear in all sorts of email communication that I've communicated. I've not been trying to prove that he's innocent. I've been asking the other side to prove that he's guilty. And the only way that I could get to that point was to have electronic devices investigated, because there were so many different points of view, as we're seeing right now in this conversation. But people are saying, yes, but there's this, yes, but there's that, yes, but there's this.
Okay.
And so
Peter, quick question on that.
No, let me finish. I'm sitting here listening to exactly the same thing that happened 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so I've got different points of view which are expressing concern that somebody's right and somebody's wrong. The only way that I could resolve that was to have an Australian Federal Police qualified forensic investigator of electronic devices be paid to go through and actually review, did Gary search Facebook as he has been accused of? Who set up the email address? All the things that we're trying to resolve here through different points of view cannot be resolved unless you choose to believe a particular narrative about the facts that we've got in front of us. The only way that we can establish the facts is to have the facts investigated by somebody who knows what actually happened on those electronic devices.
So in no way would you ever tell people that the accusations were debunked and proven to have no substance. You would never say that to someone, right?
I've never said that.
Okay. You wrote that to Victoria in March of 2025. In an email that I have.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You wrote to Victoria in 2016, Gary was very publicly and aggressively accused. Hold on, I'm going to read your words.
No, who's Victoria?
She emailed you guys asking about these issues. You had an extensive back and forth with her, you guys and Gary. Gary emailed her too.
Victoria who? I just don't know what we're talking about. On her
email, she put her last name as Writes, W-R-I-T-E-S, I think because she likes to write.
Okay. The lady from New Zealand.
You wrote to Victoria. In 2016, Gary was very publicly and aggressively accused of using Facebook to give words of knowledge and prophecy. I had the privilege of walking with Gary through this very harrowing time. The accusations were debunked and proven to have no substance. You said that you've never said that to anyone. So it sounds like you tell some people that it's inconclusive and you tell other people that it's been debunked.
I have no, internally, I have no reason to believe that Gary is either right or wrong until it's proven by the forensic investigation. So, yes, I wrote that, and sure.
Another concern about misleading information was the idea that in some places it's been said that Nathaniel and others were not willing to contribute to the investigation or to surrender their electronic devices. Whereas I have the email threads back and forth between you guys, and they said that they were willing to do both of those things.
Yes, I drew your attention to that in the email that I sent to you earlier about the facts that I knew them. So I've acknowledged that to you already. All I'm saying is that when push came to shove and we had to do it, Ben Fitzgerald, representing Nathaniel and Haley and Daniel, indicated that they were no longer prepared to do that. So the end result was that they were no longer prepared to do that. But yes, they did acknowledge that they were prepared to do that in the early stages. So
the way that you shared it, it was misleading. It was very, very misleading to suggest that the reason things didn't go forward is because they were not willing to submit their devices, which they were, or that they were not willing to put more forward money for the investigation, which they were.
No, where did I share that?
I'll let the guys chime in here if you guys can share that.
Yeah. As in, where was that shared?
Yeah, I'll have to dig it up.
Sure. I can do that.
Maybe we're talking about two different things. I acknowledge, as I did too already, Mike, that Nathaniel was prepared to put up financial commitment to it. But what I'm pointing to is at the end of the day, that commitment was withdrawn by Ben on behalf of those that he was representing in the conversation. That's all I'm saying. I acknowledge that they were prepared to do it. But at the end of the day,
the implication that you give to Peter is that the investigation in some cases was inconclusive and that everybody decided to pull out. Now, when I look at the emails and the discussions, it looks to me as though the investigation was made as cumbersome and difficult and as possible, and that the people who were involved decided that this was not a good faith investigation, and that's when they said, forget it. Not some kind of inconclusive thing, but that you orchestrated an investigation that would be cumbersome, financially costly, and just without good faith. You know, like, do the people who are going to have to pay for this thing, did they get to pick the investigators?
Yes.
Did they have to commit to following your instructions no matter how the investigation went forward? Was there a commitment on their part where they had to follow Peter's lead no matter what?
In the email that I sent to you, Mike, I indicated that Nathaniel was welcome to become a part of the conversation with the investigators.
Under what conditions? That he flies all the way to where you guys are.
It flies always a couple of hours. That's where the investigator was going to be.
Yeah, he can just have a Zoom call. The guy can just get on the phone. I've been part of investigations. Usually you just get on the phone with people. You don't need to be in their presence. And submitting their own electric stuff, like that's weird and unnecessary. And reportedly, Gary had already replaced his electronic devices by then. So then it becomes this odd thing where we're examining devices that we think aren't going to have anything. We're giving up devices of ourselves, which would only be used to incriminate us for reasons that are unrelated to anything about the situation. We're being asked to pay for it. They're being told, they're being asked, if Gary's to be found guilty, all parties who have accused him will support a process of redemption that I will lead. What? So to get investigated, they have to agree to be under your control after the investigation's over, even if he's guilty.
That's not what I meant by the words that you're reading out.
They're supposed to pay $600 an hour for the investigator. $600 an hour, and you're adding extra stuff he has to investigate, which adds many more hours to the investigation and much more of a financial burden on them.
We were putting up $20,000 in the process. We weren't asking them to carry the whole financial burden.
Can I just ask where like who you spoke to about you and Graham Cook, was it? We're going to put up 20,000.
Correct.
And who did you tell that to?
Ben,
How did you communicate that to Ben?
verbally, because it was a relational conversation.
On the phone, you said, yeah, because it doesn't look like that in the email threads. It looked
Correct.
like you would make them pay for the whole thing.
Oh, well, I'm sorry that that's the impression that's given, but that was never the conversation.
Yeah. Did you hear about that, Nathaniel, at the time, or Dan, that these guys were going to put 20,000, him and Graham Cook?
That was never mentioned to us. And Dan is, I think, written in the chat.
No.
Yeah, Daniel says no. So, Peter, the integrity of your honesty in this situation is very much in question.
Is there a question there, Mike?
No. We've shared the evidence. There's multiple things that you're sharing that you seem to have different truths for different audiences.
If that's how you see it, then that's how you see it. I can only talk to you about my experience in the process and what I know my heart was and the conversations I had with multiple people.
Peter, we can do more than that, though, because I explicitly asked you. I even read you from your email. I said, you would never say the following, right? The accusations were debunked and proven to have no substance. And you said, no, I would never say that. I've never believed that. And then afterwards, you said, okay, I guess I said that. And you don't even have an explanation for this. When you say the accusations were debunked, right? You were saying something about Nathaniel and Haley and Chris. You're saying something about Ben and something about Daniel. You're saying something about all of these people. And you're saying this to someone who privately reached out to you guys saying, I believe in Gary. I'm nervous because of all the exposures that are happening. Just tell me that this guy's legit. She wanted to just trust you guys. That's it. And then she gets this and her radar goes up higher and higher because you guys were very evasive and weird in the email. It was very strange. The whole thread is weird. But this is you in our meeting showing me that you're duplicitous in your statement about Gary Morgan, depending on your audience. That's a fact of reality. That's not something you can dispute. I have no question for you. You did this right now. We're all here. I'm not going to pretend we didn't see what we saw. So this makes it difficult to think that you should be part of any investigation into Gary. You should be investigated along with Gary.
You're welcome to do that if you'd like to.
I'd rather not. I didn't want to have this meeting. You guys asked for it. What I see here, guys, is a ton of evidence, and I have not heard a good explanation for it, Gary, from you, except for you telling me that you're a good guy. A ton of evidence, and those who are covering for you, I'll use the term, being duplicitous, at least Peter, being duplicitous in his engagement and his behavior, being controlling, being difficult in this process to try to make it harder and harder until people just give up because they have no good faith belief in it. You spoke as though Ben Fitzgerald was on the fence or something else like this, but I talked to him and he very much believes that Gary is guilty and he just lost faith in you guys as people who would do anything about it. That was the reality. It wasn't an inconclusive investigation. That was never what it was. It was a ton of evidence, no good explanations alternately, and you writing presumed innocent, presumed innocent, presumed innocent until everybody just says, forget it. And then poor Nathaniel is forced to apologize. Gary, please tell me, how am I wrong? Look at this is a very significant amount of evidence.
Mike, I agree. To the objective observer, it looks exactly like that. And I haven't denied I called that the fake Facebook page, but it's what I saw, it's what I received, it's what I shared, and I can't give any other explanation for that. But I did not data mine, and I did not look up Facebook. I've never done that, Mike.
You've never done it, and at the same time, the email, Haley makes this Facebook page. It's wild. Gary, it's like the Lord wanted you to get caught. She makes this Facebook page, does a little comment on a Facebook post. You call out the name and the birth date. Then an email shows up, and it's Lamberty, a name that is very rare, but is inside your circle, your area. There's someone with that last name. And then the person is pressed like, hey, they want to find out more about this person who emailed, and their email gets deleted. The Google account's gone.
Well, I was at dinner when that email was sent. I was sat there with Catherine, Tom, and with Trevor.
That's absolutely fine, Gary. All that is fine. I'm asking you to respond to the evidence I just shared.
But to set up an email and to send an email while you're at dinner, I just don't. And that's one of the things I said to Pete. I said, there's nefarious things going on here that need to be investigated.
Sure, I can look into this. It won't be hard to find out. In 2016, was it possible to send an email without sitting at your computer? Sure, I can look that up.
I was there at 8 for dinner. Catherine and Tom were there. Trevor and Meredith were there, and this email appeared.
And you maintain it was not possible to do that in 2016.
I must say something. I did not send that. I was at dinner that night.
Was Sarah at that dinner as well?
As in me?
Yeah.
No, I was at home pregnant on bed rest.
Okay.
So the defense is not that strong.
That's the reason.
If it was. No, I'm sorry, Gary. Go ahead, please.
I was just, again, there was been accusations that, there was someone else helping me and stuff like that. And that's one of the reasons in chatting with Pete is that we have to get these devices. Not just myself. I was open. I said, Pete, there's my device. And I just want to clarify, I hadn't changed devices. There was no devices that had been changed. And so I'd offered my devices. I offered Sarah's devices. And every time there's been questions, every time there's been things talked about either by Ben or Dan or others, I haven't shied away. I haven't deflected. I haven't tried to defend my position. I've shown up to everything that I've been asked to show up to, and including when Pete came to me and said, Gary, you need to submit your devices. I said, I'm happy to submit my devices. There's nothing that I have to defend you. And so, but at 8:50, when that email was sent, I was having dinner at Trevor and Meredith's, and also as well, Catherine and Tom were there.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys think that first let me ask Nathaniel, he's suggesting that he did not, is that something I misunderstood? Did he have a new device or not?
There was a social media photo from Gary like a few weeks after like the original thing happened, where he was at the Apple store buying new devices. That was what we saw.
Yeah, I think that's Ben would have would be the person I imagine to talk to about that. I guess if I could just add one thing, the main thing for us here, and I guess we were going to share how it happened, but this is like, we're happy to just move with whatever way the meeting needs to go, Mike. But for us, there was a fake Facebook page made that was called out, and Chris was referring back to a meeting we had some time ago, and for us, that was clear that would be what we would need to see to know that something like this was happening. I guess that's that history doesn't make things go away, and I guess for us that still, especially with the email, whether we've got 3 reasons we do believe the email almost certainly is my wording, it is connected to Gary, but irrespective of that, an email was made, a fake email by my wife. I'm not sure if you want to share anything more about that. We don't need to, but if you'd like us to, totally your call. But that to me is, I don't know how to explain that.
Yeah, I think you're right in that identifying whether this email is associated with Gary is more evidence. It's not the linchpin. But what, if you wouldn't mind, share the 3 reasons that you think it was associated with him.
Yeah, sure. So reason 1, when Ben and Joel, not myself, started to, when Ben was concerned about this, Haley had made a Facebook page, but when Ben was concerned, he said that the email will either show that she's innocent, that Gary's innocent, or if a real Sarah Lamberty comes forward. It was as simple as that, with a birth date. Then real person exists. So that was the main thing he wanted to do with Joel. So the 3 reasons: 1, Sarah Lamberty, the so-called Sarah Lamberty, consistently lied about their location. They said that they were on a missions trip
in Cambodia with the Red Cross
when they were actually in Australia, and consistently lied about that. Reason 2, Lamberty is an extraordinarily rare surname. We know this because at the time that Ben was concerned, we looked into the name Sarah Lamberty and had a private investigator, which this has been made known to everyone. This is not new information. So the private investigator said very clearly, forensic investigator, there does not seem to be a Sarah Lamberty on the record in Australia. So reason 2, the person doesn't seem to exist. Not only that, the person is not on the record of going to this mission trip with the Red Cross. That's something you can look at. They said, I've gone to Cambodia. Keep in mind that this person supposedly emailed Gary and emailed Glory City Church, so excited about this word. A few weeks later, not willing to talk about it. They said they're going on a mission trip for 6 months. And we looked up with the Red Cross if a Sarah Lamberty had gone to Cambodia. They did not. So reason 2, it doesn't seem that a Sarah Lamberty exists. And just to make things worse, Ben brought this to my attention. There seemed to be that Lamberty was a very rare name. And he realized, oh, interesting, I know someone with the surname Lamberty. I'll ask them if they know a Sarah. This person's name, I believe Ben could tell us who it is, but they had the surname Lamberty. It was the only person he knew. He asked if they knew of a Sarah. They did not. Then Ben found out this person is in Gary's prophetic school. So we believe that's a very odd coincidence, since the name Lamberty is 1 in 1.9 million chance of having that name. There's roughly about 20 potentially in Australia with that surname. When Haley made the Facebook page,
when I created this Sarah on Facebook, I made the last name Wildman, just thinking of a last name of people that went to my parents' church.
So
their friends. Sorry. That was how I came up with it.
So if you're in a rush, one could likely conclude that you would use a name you're familiar with. Again, not necessarily a smoking gun, but the third reason was that other reason we mentioned, that it strongly appeared, based on Ben, not myself, and what he did with a Google expert, after he put a post out and said, can someone help me with this? The Sarah email got deleted at exactly that same time. It said 0 days ago, this email was deleted. The recovery email there, you could put multiple emails in, of which it rejected. Ben did this, asked me to have a quick look. I did the same thing with the help of this Google expert. The only email that worked was Gary's. The only reason I have said that that is not unequivocal is because to do that would be illegal. I've never said that that in and of itself is a smoking gun, but I sure believe that those 3 points are enough to cast extraordinary doubt on the existence of a Sarah Lamberty. And therefore we're back to a fake Facebook page has been called out, the name. And for us, we can't look past that. To us, that may not be able to be explained by you guys, but for us, that is all we decided we would need to see to know that this was happening. Haley put that out as
a fleece for God, and just made it and decided to trust God to reveal whether it was happening.
And I was happy.
Here we are.
And I was happy to move on. Yes, please go.
Add just one more oddity about that time and this email being deleted. At the same time, you got hacked. Was it, Gary? And you lost everything?
Yeah, and I got a screenshot on the 18th at 3 something in the morning. My Gmail was compromised and accessed, and I had screenshots of that. So it was on the 19th, like Nathaniel just said, that everything then got deleted. And so, my stuff was accessed and hacked. And that's, again, a reason I said to Pete, we need to get these devices forensically looked at, because there's nefarious things going on and everything is trying to be set up against me in this. And also as well, it's no secret that hacking was being used by those involved.
Wait. Let's slow down. Are you suggesting that somebody set you up?
That's what I was trying to find out, Mike.
Yeah, but what do you think happened? You think you said nefarious stuff, and you think that someone set up the Sarah Lamberty email? and connected it to you after hacking your account in order to make it look like you were guilty? Is that a hypothesis?
Absolutely, because again, being at dinner when this thing was happened, I have no explanation on how that email could be sent for me if I was at dinner.
But let me lean on this a little bit if we can. If your theory is there's a possibility that somebody set up the Sarah Lamberty email as part of an attempt to make it look like you were trying to cover your tracks on something.
Yeah.
Okay. So then that would also imply that you think that there is an actual connection, that the Sarah Lamberty email is a fake person who's pretending to defend you initially, that was the initial thing, is Sarah Lamberty's defending you. And that then the person who set this up was counting on them doing all this work, talking to an investigator just to find out that the email was somehow connected with you. That this was all part, because the only people that could be in on this would be the ones on this call. You're saying that they, right? Like, play it out. What does this look like? It sounds like you're saying either I'm guilty or I was set up. And I think that one of those is a much simpler explanation.
Sorry, you might drop there. I didn't get the last part you said.
Sorry, what if someone was setting you up at this stage in the game, who's doing it? Nobody's gunning for you yet. They're just like hoping it's not true.
That's what I want to find out.
Gary, come on, dude, you're such a liar, man. It's so ridiculous. It is atrocious. I don't know how you guys can't. Peter, Alyn, you should be so embarrassed. When you had a chance to out this guy as blaspheming the name of Christ, as abusing the people of God, you instead caused serious harm to the life. Nathaniel, please, would you mind sharing just briefly how this impacted you when you guys tried to have real accountability, how it hurt you guys?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, we were very shocked, obviously. Hayley, do you want to share just quickly what your reaction was when this happened, and then we can mention it?
When he first called it out. When it first happened, I just felt really in shock. Like I just was numb and just shocked, and more the aftermath, where our pastors initially didn't believe, they believed that Gary was legitimately hearing from God and that we'd done the wrong thing and that we were wrong to set a trap, so to speak.
Which came from Gary. Our pastors did believe us. Logically, Tom looked at the details originally, like anyone would, when they looked and said and saw. We called Catherine and Tom that night as it happened. There's nothing in it for us here. I'm a media guy, but we were shocked and appalled by this. We called Catherine. They were shocked and appalled by this, and thanked Hayley for creating this page. But Mike, I guess I'll come to what you're asking about, because it's the next thing that happened. They believed us on this and thanked us for making this, because Tom saw the fake Facebook page, drew the conclusion anyone reasonably would, that Gary had called out a fake Facebook page made to catch him, the only one created. And we thought that was it. We thought it was over. Tom and Catherine were meeting with Gary, and as he's mentioned, we didn't know about this, but he claimed complete innocence. We didn't hear anything for the whole Saturday. When Sunday came along, we were asked to be in a meeting with Gary before he was going to preach on Sunday. We couldn't understand how he would still be preaching, but we thought maybe they'd be repenting from the stage. We didn't know. So we came along to this meeting with our 6-month-old child, and it became very clear that this meeting was about us. And Gary mentioned some things, and you might remember.
And I remember Gary quoting the scripture from Proverbs, "He who sets a trap will fall in it." And in that, he seemed to imply that there was something wrong in our hearts that was the reason that we had made a fake Facebook person. And I knew that that wasn't true. I knew that my motivation in making it was a love for the prophetic and a love for the people in our church. And that was why I made the Facebook person, to get to the bottom of it. But we were very much attacked in that meeting and in the weeks following. And the motives of our hearts were like scrutinized on, and it was very confusing, and we were accused of being on a witch hunt and a lot of absurd things, and it was very, very difficult, very, very traumatizing for young people. We were in our mid-20s, and we just found it very, very difficult to be so persecuted for what we thought was doing the right thing.
Yeah, and even as things progressed, Tom and Catherine have since apologized to us profusely and do believe that Gary is guilty based on the evidence alone, and have apologized for the way we were treated. But even my very first phone call with Peter McHugh, I was told at the very start of the call, are you on speakerphone or are you recording? I mentioned I wasn't recording. It was on the 12th of May 2016. I believe Peter would be calling me to get to the bottom of the facts. That's what I was told. I was hopeful. And at the beginning of the call, it was said very clearly, am I on speakerphone or am I being recorded? And I said, no, you're not being recorded, but you're on speakerphone because my wife is here. I was told immediately to take the call off speakerphone, which meant Hayley, the person who originally made the Facebook page, wasn't even able to be privileged to the call. And I'm glad she wasn't, because Peter went on to accuse me very clearly of being a gossip, creating a fake Facebook page. I remember his words saying, I'll do the talking, you do the listening. I'd never been spoken to by a leader like this before. I remember just trembling as someone in their 20s, like quite shocked by it. And I remember just blurting out as the call felt like it was going to end, surely you would want the facts. Can I just send you the facts? To which Peter said, I wouldn't even look at them. And I just managed to say, can I please email you the facts so you can see the facts? And again, he repeated, I would not even look at them. It was a short call, but I remember it. And that was just a few of the things that happened. Yes, a few days later, Ben and Dan were able to talk Peter into looking at the evidence, and the very document that you all have was created pretty much for Peter and Catherine so others could see just the clear facts of what had happened.
Peter, do you acknowledge or deny that you said that over the phone to Nathaniel?
It was 10 years ago, so I have no recollection of the call. What I can appeal to is that that's not who I am, and that's not how I conduct myself. And so I'm probably as shocked as Nathaniel's describing that I would be accused of saying something like that. But there's no way that either of us can prove that, so I'm not denying it. I'm just saying it's not in keeping with who I know myself to be. So, yeah, beyond that, I'm not quite sure what you want me to say.
Peter, you were part of a Zoom call that happened in February of 2026, on February 11th. In the Zoom call, do you remember? Do you remember what you said about the investigation?
Again, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Zoom call with Leo Nicotra, John Mandukas, Jay Lee, Josiah Nicotra, and Cliff Cherry.
I remember the Zoom call, yep.
Yeah. You told them, you were asked, did they have a reason for refusing to submit their electronic devices? If there was a reason. Actually, let me read to you from the beginning. You said, Graham and I were prepared to put up $20,000 to do that when I made the offer, talking about the investigation of the electronic devices. And at that point, the other side withdrew. The other side said they didn't want to participate in that. From our viewpoint, from our perspective, it left Gary hanging out to dry because they continue to make accusations, but they haven't been willing to do the hard work of actually proving what they're saying is true. And so from our point of view, we think this is a closed case. So you suggest that you guys were putting up a bunch of money, which everybody says they did not hear from you, and Ben says he did not hear $20K from you. And You also said that they refused, after you offering all this money, they refused to offer their devices, which is not true. That's a lie. Then Leon followed up by asking you, did they have a reason for refusing to submit their electronic devices? If there was a reason, what was it? You, Peter, replied, they would not give us any reason, and they've never provided me, as the main investigator here in Australia, with any evidence of the claims. They could produce nothing. You went on to talk about Ben Fitzgerald, and you said Ben inserted himself in the process. In my bad days, I want to break Ben's kneecaps. You call it an unwarranted rumor that has not been proven. Peter, you're what we call the fixer, right? Gary's the fraud. You're the fixer. That's what this looks like. That's what any reasonable person would see if they weren't caught up in some sort of spiritual deception. Anybody led by the Spirit would have been on Nathaniel and Chris and the other guys' side, rooting them on and saying, yeah, guys, speak truth. This is what we do as Christians. And you've come in and you've offered different stories to different folks and put yourself in the middle of it as like the fixer. On February 11th, you said things that you said you would never say. And if I didn't have, it's just like when I talked to Chris, if I didn't have the evidence that you didn't know I had, you could have just lied to me this whole meeting.
So there's lots of suggestions that you're making here, and I'm not getting an opportunity to actually respond to each one as you put them on the table. So can you just go back through the dialogue of the meeting, the Zoom call, which just for the record, we had no idea was being recorded, and we weren't informed that that was the case. So, but you have the transcript, so there it is. So just go back through it again and just let me, as you're shooting lots of bullets at me, I'm not getting a chance to actually sort of respond to any of those. That the previous sort of set of conversations, you shot a bunch of bullets and then we jumped away somewhere else. And so let's just go through it one by one and give me an opportunity to explain myself, if we can do that, please.
Yeah, you're absolutely, and Gary as well. You guys, please, if you have any explanations, I would, if you have great explanations, I will not only apologize for what I've shared, I will publicly declare your innocence and your integrity, and I would have no qualms about doing that. Because what this meeting does is it brings us to the point where accountability is coming one way or another to somebody. It might be me. Fine, so be it. I'm fine with that. But Peter, please share anything you can that would help exonerate what you've done.
I asked if you could go through the transcript again, and would you stop so I can comment on each of the things that you're assuming create me to be the fixer. So I'd like to be able to comment about each of those things that you read out. So if you could just read through it again, and I'll just stop you when I want to comment.
Sure. I'll read the first paragraph, which was, you said, Graham and I were prepared to put up $20,000 to do that when I made the offer, talking about the investigation here. And at that point, the other side withdrew. The other side said they didn't want to participate.
Okay, so let's just stop there. So it's really going to come down, Mike, to who you choose to believe at this point as to whether Graham and I did put up $20,000 and that we did say that to Ben and that we did make that clear to Ben and that Ben was the one who withdrew. That's my recollection of the reality and of the facts. And I'm not. So at the minute you're choosing to believe Ben's recollection of those points of view over my recollection of them. That's your prerogative to choose to do that. But what I'm saying is that there's no evidence here other than my word and his word. And
there's evidence.
If you're going to, sorry,
there's evidence.
Evidence of just $20,000 being offered.
Yeah, it's the email exchanges you have with Nathaniel where you make no such offer. Throughout the entire discussion, all the way to the point where the whole thing's ending, you make no such offer, and you imply that they have to pay for the whole thing.
Again, I offer the thought that you're relying on email conversations that don't reflect the full breadth of the conversations that were being taken. And if that's what you want to rely on, then that's entirely your prerogative to come to a conclusion that there was evidence. And I've acknowledged in my email to you that there was evidence that Nathaniel offered to contribute towards the financial costs. I'm offering to you that there are verbal conversations between Ben and myself, because part of this was a relational thing where he asked me to be an intermediary between Gary and himself. And so I'm offering to you that my point of view, my perspective, my memory is very clear, as I've stated to many people, that the $20,000 was offered. So I'm happy for you to rely, if you want to rely on the email conversation that Nathaniel was prepared to put up money. I acknowledge that he was prepared to do that. I'm offering to you that the conversation continued verbally and ended up in another place. And so it's entirely up to you, Mike, as to where you're going to land on what you choose to base your opinion or your perspective on. I can't refute that.
Right. Well, would you agree with the following, at least? When Nathaniel pulled out, he was not aware of an offer for you guys to pay $20,000.
That's what he's suggesting, correct.
Okay, and you have reason to doubt anything Nathaniel said?
I'm answering a question at a time, so I don't know where that question's coming from. I'm not doubting that Nathaniel offered that. I'm just saying that in the email that I sent to you, Ben, there's an email that I wrote saying that Ben withdrew the offer for forensic investigation of electronic devices.
Would you still be willing to put up $20,000, you and Graham, with an investigator that I choose?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Really?
Why would that change?
Because it's not going to be about researching Gary's devices. I'm not sure how that helps. You have a guy who is good at tech, and I mean, how would you find out looking at someone's devices anyways? You said your prophetic notes and stuff were all deleted, so I don't see how that's going to help anything. But what we do have is we have a Facebook page that was made.
Sorry, Mike.
Sorry, Gary, go ahead, please.
I never used a device. I simply, for me, my process was in worship, which again, standing next to Nathaniel, I think at some point I was standing next to Chris in worship, and I would write down what I received, like I've done, many times.
But you wrote it down in your device, like your prophetic notes. You write in your device.
No, in a physical notebook. So any words that I receive in the meeting in worship, and again, it's there's many instances, Mike, where this has happened, and again in these last 10 years, this is the only place, this is the only instance, literally, where this accusation has come, and the fruit speaks for itself. And again, I see this, I acknowledge this to an objective observer, as I said to Pete right at the beginning, the way this is being painted, absolutely, to any objective observer, there's guilt. But I know what I know, and again, I object to your characterization of me being a liar. I am not a liar.
So really, Gary, really quick on this. You say you did not keep prophetic notes in any way associated with your electronic devices so that nobody could delete your notes because they hacked you. That's not a thing.
My notes. So my emails were deleted from my Gmail, and also as well, I'd created a folder for me to create a photo book for Tobias from his birth, because Emma was about to be born, and I created a folder and I put all them photos in there to create a photo book, and that had been deleted.
So you sent an email or a text message to somebody that said, just about to go into a meeting. I only got the last one on Wednesday, and then found my whole account had been accessed and changed. All my personal emails, prophetic notes, Tobias memories, everything all deleted. I've tried to restore from my Mac, but they got a lot.
My journal,
sorry.
My prophetic notes would be my journal, but not my prophetic ministry that I did on in meetings. I didn't use electronic devices. I'd use my notebook.
You're the one that used the term prophetic notes. I asked you about prophetic notes. You answered about prophetic notes. Your term, Gary. It sounds like you're not telling the truth right now. Does anybody care to disagree with me on this?
I think you're lying on my words there again. Prophetic notes are my journals.
I asked you about prophetic notes. You answered about prophetic notes, said they would not have been on your electronic devices. And I use that term because that's the term that was in the message. Now you're saying that that's not how you use the term, but that's how you used it just now. I didn't explain prophetic notes. I just asked you about them. You assumed that's what it meant.
I was talking about how I give prophetic words in a meeting, and so then you jump to the email being deleted.
Yeah, he may have used paper from the pulpit, if that's the topic in question. I have to go back and have a look, but I feel like I have a memory of paper journals from the pulpit, if that's the topic.
Always use journals.
I'm not denying any of that. I'm suggesting that at some point he told Ben prophetic notes had been deleted, meaning that such things no longer existed to be examined. That's what you suggested to Ben. That's the part I'm getting at. And you're saying, well, they were never on my phone in the first place. And I'm like, well, how interesting that you told them they were deleted. That's a very interesting disappearance of evidence. Oh, I conveniently relocate them from paper onto my electronic device, which, oh, it was hacked. You see how this evidence continues to stack against you.
I've never suggested that. I'm like, that's your suggestion.
I have no idea. That's a response to what I just said.
Mike, can you just help me clarify Ben's observation that the notes were deleted from an electronic device? Where's that information coming from?
Are you doubting that it was real, that what I read was real? Gary, can you attest that what I read was real?
No, it's a text message I sent to Ben when the 2 days after my device was compromised, or my Gmail was compromised, which I've got screenshots for.
So can you just read the text again, Mike? I'm getting lost in the backwards and forwards.
It just, the part that I was highlighting is that he mentions to Ben that he had prophetic notes on his devices that were deleted, that he no longer has.
Is that what the text? Can you read the text to us?
Sure. He says, just about to go into meeting. I only got the last one on Wednesday and then found my whole account had been accessed and changed. All my personal emails, prophetic notes, Tobias's memories, everything all deleted.
Okay,
that's not my device. That's literally my Gmail account.
I think what Mike's asking though is, what did you mean by prophetic notes in that text, Karen?
Well, now he says he means journal. So, which is
no. Wait a minute, Mike. Don't answer the question for him.
No, he already answered it, Peter. You just lost track of the conversation.
Yeah,
he did answer this. Gary, please share with him again.
My journals would be things that I've written down that I maybe throughout the week that I felt the Lord was sharing with me and stuff like that. Then I put that in my notes, and so that would be in my Welsh Eagle connected there. And so, but it's also as well, I use my Apple Notes as well, which again, they're there to see, and I'm happy for people to see them. But they what I write down as I go on the journey, and so yeah, there's no denial there, Mike, that that's what happened.
The only other thing I want to bring up is this idea that there's been no other accusations in 10 years. I've heard this line several times. It's in the public statement and all this other thing that in the past, 10 years, there's never been another accusation or concern. I think the phrase was no one has even raised a concern in 10 years. And that's not true. And the emails back and forth with Victoria last year are evidence of that, because she not only raised concerns, like I questioned, hey, but as she got more and more worried, she started finding stuff and she started bringing it to you guys. And so there's concerns there. And there's obviously people that have come up, because Gary, in his message back and forth with Victoria, says that he's been asked about this kind of stuff, and then people try to use his answers against him, which means people obviously have ongoing concerns. And so this seems to be, you guys are misleading people about the fact that, yes, they're having concerns. There's new concerns. There's brought up old concerns. There's people like the pastor, Nathan Dre's old pastor, who says, I believe you guys, I'm sorry, I apologize. Obviously, that's a serious issue, but you guys presented to the world like this thing was just sort of inconclusive, or even worse, these guys were just bringing a bunch of false accusations.
I've never presented it like that. And every time there's been a question, and again, every time someone's asked me questions, it's always related back to Glory City. It's never been to other ministry. And again, I've been honorable in not mentioning names, never mentioned Nathaniel's name, Haley's. Chris was never in the picture. So again, I've never mentioned Chris, but Daniel or Ben, I've never mentioned their name. And I've been very transparent and open about the process. And in that sort of respect, interestingly, with Victoria, it was a random email. And again, we were having random emails from random people asking questions. And so simply the response was, hey, could you let us know who you are and what church you're part of? Because again, one of the things that I'm finding difficult, Mike, is people are approaching in unbiblical ways, trying to get biblical outcomes. And again, there seems to be this sort of smoke and mirrors approach where they're looking for full transparency and vulnerability, but are not offering that, in the first place.
I don't understand how that answers my question. Here's the thing. There have obviously been ongoing concerns. You guys have presented things in public in a way that is different than what they are in reality. The evidence seems mounted. If you guys are up for it, I'd be happy to contact an organization. And I don't care about examining. I don't see how examining devices helps the situation in the first place, anybody's devices for that matter. I think what we have to look at is the words and the Facebook posts, which are already documented in the dossier that was created, and we can share what's there. And the thing is, it seems as plain as the nose on your face what's happened here. And there are others who have concerns, whether you feel they've brought them to you or not. I don't know how you guys react to people when they bring up concerns, if you create a real open door for that or not. There's one of the comments I'll read it to you guys. This is sad. When this stuff started going public, there was a person who went out and said, "Hey, I want to say this is what happened. Gary Morgan prophecy that hurt my family," and then someone else, chimes in and responds underneath, and they said the following. I'll read it to you. And I have no reason to not take this at face value. They weren't trying to draw attention to themselves. She just says the following: "I know this prophet too, and I'll never forget how he prophesied over our darling Nitin, their kid. When he was fearful that the cancer had returned, he told our boy that he was cured and the cancer would not be returning, so Nitin did not seek treatment. Delaying treatment was a fatal mistake. I cannot forget that, and I can't forgive. I just can't find a way to trust in church leaders anymore, and I've walked away. I'm so saddened for you, and Stu, sending so much love to you." That she's talking about the other person who suffered reportedly because of your prophetic ministry not being genuine. Wasn't their kid, but okay, so Nathaniel, do you want to share more on that, Nathaniel?
This person said that it wasn't their child. It was a person from their church. The person who wrote the comment, I think, was on staff at the church.
And they called him our boy because he was on the worship team. This person was on staff, and reached out several times to beg him to seek medical treatment because they had been in palliative care and understood the signs.
Do you remember prophesying about Nitin, Gary?
What's the name?
Nitin.
I don't. Where was this? What church?
I don't know if you guys have more details.
Yeah, I believe Larry Sebastian's church. We only know what you know from the comments publicly, and then have followed up just to understand more.
Peter, how do you handle it when you hear an accusation like that? What's your process?
I would want to talk to the person that was directly involved in it, if that person was prepared to have the conversation. It's a heartbreaking and incredibly significant accusation that would need to have some level of at least human empathy, if not deep concern about what's actually happened there in the ministry time.
Can you repeat what happened, Mike? Because I have no recollection of that. I don't know what the accusation is.
The accusation is that you prophesied over this Nitin that the cancer would not return, and so they did not seek treatment when it did, and delaying treatment ended up being a fatal mistake, and so they died.
I honestly, hand on heart, I have no recollection, and on heart that that goes outside of protocols that we teach in our school, and I live by myself. That's
So if I found like two or three witnesses that validated that this in fact,
I record every prophetic word I give. I either record myself or ask the person to record it. Is this something that was recorded?
I don't have more information than what I share with you.
I'm devastated, Mike. That's I've never, no one's ever approached me and said that happened. Not even the pastor said something like that happened. And
do you check on people when you prophesy about them? Do you follow up, see how they're doing? I mean, you guys, it's a culture where nobody feels like they could come to you. And then when they do, you know, Nathaniel here and his wife are treated like pariahs, and they're completely justified. They're completely justified. How did you not champion them? Peter, were you involved 10 years ago, Alyn? Are you more recent, right?
Yeah, I'm more recent.
I mean, Alyn, what do you honestly think about all this? It's an overwhelming amount of evidence. I've caught specific deceptions, even in our call just here today. Anybody else seeing this would know what this is. And you're in an awkward position because you're like, okay, you know, do I just continue towing the party line, or do I just call it what it is?
I think the difficulty we've got here, Mike, is you're clearly stating facts, and we're all acknowledging the facts. Gary called out a word that was also the same as a fake Facebook account. You know, emails were sent that we are very doubtful that person exists, etc., etc. But then there's the narrative that goes over those facts, and one side is choosing to interpret those facts a certain way. So, for example, you know, you've been caught out. What was the word that you just used that you said about Pete's behavior?
What, as a fixer?
No, just right before you threw to me. Hey guys, you know, we're having this conversation and
deceptive.
Yeah, you've all, you know, it's clear that Pete's been deceptive. It's like, well, I'm not sure it's clear that Pete is deceptive, because that would attribute motive to his heart. It is clear that things have been said and that Pete doesn't have a recollection that's been said. So as I sit here listening to this, one of the advantages I have is that I've known Gary 20 plus years. I've watched him minister pre-social media. I've watched him be in random restaurants and know the names of people and, you know, go up and do things. So again, we didn't hop on the call to defend Gary. We hopped on the call to bear witness to truth. And it's clear that the facts are true. How they're being interpreted, I have a little bit of concern with.
Alyn, allow me to push back a little on what you just shared. First off, it's okay to attribute motive. That's reasonable to do. If a guy's sneaking around my house in the middle of the night, I attribute motive. He is up to no good. And I'm very smart to do that. It's very wise to do that. There's times to attribute motive. There's times not to. There's times where it's unclear. There's times where it seems obvious. As far as what Peter did, he didn't just fail to remember a conversation. I asked him very clearly, would you ever say the following? And he said, no, I've never had that position. It's something he's never believed. It's something he's never thought. And then I have 2 instances of him doing it. That's deceptive.
Sorry, which of the 2 instances?
I read both of them.
Yeah, one was the email to Victoria. There's a lot of information that's gone under the bridge, Mike. I'm just asking you to clarify, not to. So, one was
email to
Victoria.
It was the Zoom call.
Well, we didn't even get to finish that conversation because the conversation dived off in other directions. We only talked about the first opening paragraph. So I'm happy to go back over that conversation if you want to.
If that's what you want to do, I mean, do you think that would be fruitful to share what you? I can try to bring you back up.
I'm not sure what's going to be fruitful, Mike. I'm just suggesting that we only talked about, to say that there were 2 examples, and one of them was the Zoom call. We only explored one part of that as an example. I don't need to, Mike. At the end of the day, you'll believe what you want to believe about the facts that are on the table. Yes, I did write to Victoria. I clearly regret writing what I wrote then. If you want to take it and make it something more than that I'm deceptive, then that, again, as I said before, that's entirely up to you to create the narrative, as Alyn said, that you want to create around the facts.
Well, like I'm sorry, please, Chris, share.
Yeah. Can I just ask, so you're happy to say now that you have received evidence from us, yeah? From Nathaniel and Dan. You've received evidence, would you say, Peter?
I've always been happy to say that. That's in all the email conversations. That's what the email conversations were about.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just curious as to why you told Leon that you never received any evidence.
So can we go back to that comment in the transcript?
Just curious, yeah, as to why you told Leo that you never received any evidence, that you got nothing.
So what I'm interested in is hearing what I actually said, not your recollection of what I said.
Okay, Nathaniel, do you have that transcript?
Yeah, I believe it's the one you have there, Mike. There's.
Sorry, go ahead. Would you like to read it to us, Nathaniel? That would be wonderful. That little section, it's underlined.
I believe you've got it. If I take 20 seconds to find it, I can.
Oh, okay. I can do it here. So it's, you were asked, did they have a reason for refusing to submit their electronic devices, which they didn't refuse? If there was a reason, what was it? And you replied, they would not give us any reason, and they've never provided me, as the main investigator here in Australia, with any evidence of the claims. They could produce nothing. Was that a deceptive comment?
Well, the context for me in making that comment was that there was no evidence through the investigation of the electronic devices, because the evidence, again, we're going to get down to semantics, but from my perspective, my understanding is that I got circumstantial evidence. It's not evidence that would actually would hold up in a court of law. And that my whole premise in the conversations was that Gary was innocent until he was proven guilty. And so I was looking at it through the lens of evidence that could be substantive and actually prove the points that were being made. And so, yes, they were the words that I used, but the context for me in using them was different to the context that you're wanting to portray. And so, yeah, I mean, you can characterize me in whatever way you want to characterize me, Mike. At the end of the day,
Peter, stop playing the victim. You're deceiving us right in real time. Okay, I'm not playing the victim. You don't need to play the victim, sir. You said they did not provide you with, quote, any evidence of the claims. Your words. What are the claims? The claims are not about electronic devices. The claims are about Facebook pages and words of information. They did give you the evidence. You lied to those people to defend Gary. You told me, there's other stuff. In your very first message to me, you told me that the investigation was inconclusive. And ironically enough, you said the investigation came to a conclusion of the evidence being inconclusive as to whether Gary had data mined.
It still is inconclusive because it hasn't been proven.
Proven to you. Ben's convinced.
Proven in a court of law is different.
There's no courts of law here. These are people. These are just people. This is the church.
Yeah, but somebody still surely is entitled to a position of being innocent until proven guilty. There's a perception. We've always acknowledged that there's a perception that any objective person looking at this is going to come to the conclusions that you've come to. We've not hidden from that. We've not suggested.
You've definitely not always acknowledged that. You've not always acknowledged that. I've just read you emails where you don't. Peter, you cannot tell the truth.
Whatever.
And this goes perfectly with Gary being a fraud. Gary, I am convinced that you are a blasphemer and a fraud who lies in the name of Christ and then demonizes the very Christians who try to hold you accountable. It's disgusting. And Alyn, you seem crippled to have the ability to just have the integrity to call out your own people, which is because this is what happened to these guys when they stood forward. You've got it. It's nuts. It is nuts. Gary, there's no wonder you've run with Sean Bowles in the past. You were doing the same thing as him at the same time as him.
Mike, would you be open to some questions right now?
Any questions you want?
Thanks. You mentioned, and I was very moved by Nathaniel and Haley's retelling of what they experienced. So you guys move thinking that you're following the Holy Spirit. You meet with Gary. I'm replaying back what I heard, so please correct me if I'm wrong. You have a meeting with Gary on the Sunday morning. You don't feel like that goes well. And then you said, it was horrible. We were told we were on a witch hunt. I'm curious, who was telling you that you were on a witch hunt? And give me the time period of that happened. And then you said that Catherine and I think Tom, is that their name, came back and apologized to you. Can you help me with the time frame of that?
Yes, I believe. So is your question a time frame of what in particular?
My question is, I heard that it was a really traumatic experience for you to be in a meeting, and it sounded like that you were on a witch hunt. The accusations followed longer, and I'm wondering, did I hear that correctly, or did I make an assumption? It followed longer than just that one meeting with Gary.
Yes.
And who was it that was stating that you were on a witch hunt?
Again, I guess in the midst of it, it was real difficult for everyone. Tom and Catherine have profusely apologized.
So they were people who were telling you, "Hey,
some of
that, yeah,
for a period of time." And again, Catherine has apologized with tears and said that she believed the best in Gary, and she believed that she had let her love and belief in Gary get in the way of seeing the true details. And once she saw the same dossier that has been unchanged and made available to everyone, she came to the conclusion that Gary was in fact guilty and apologized for the way we were treated. But she was not isolated. There were other leaders that will remain unnamed that are close to us who refused to reach out. And may I add that not one person in the last 10 years from any of this has come to us to ask for any clarification in any way, shape, or form. Things have been said about us, but very little has been asked from us. And so that really understates some of what we experienced, but there's no need to dwell on that.
Do you remember when Catherine came and apologized to you?
It was 2 months after. So it was in May of 2016.
May of 2016. And I bet that probably brought a lot of salve and peace to your heart.
Of course. Yeah, definitely. And
can I read you an email from Catherine that was sent in August? So I'm bad at math. Somebody else can do it. Several months after that she had apologized in May. This is from Catherine. She said, "Hi, Peter. My apologies for not getting back to you sooner." Well, this part doesn't matter. I'll jump to the paragraph that does, sorry. "As I've not taken the role of accuser or prosecutor from the beginning, I think it's not necessary for me to say too much." This is an email from Catherine to Peter. "I have spoken with Nathaniel, and he has come to the conclusion that he was wrong in the way he's handled this. He acknowledges that Haley should never have set a trap, and that he should not have spoken to Ben about the matter. He's also apologized to me and will apologize to all involved. I'm glad he recognizes this, and I'm pleased he's come to this conclusion on his own." And I was so curious about that fitting into the timeline, and I would just love to hear your reflections on that email.
Yeah, I don't think that misinterprets the way. In fact, it's very clearly in the email thread. The last thing I said is, I believe you have this, Mike Winger. I felt a lot of pressure to admit to wrongdoing at any cost. And so I did at one point say, I am sorry that my wife created an email. It was quite absurd, really, but I guess I was young. And I did feel I had to apologize for something because of the extremity. So yes, and also there in the email thread, I said, I'm sorry for going to Ben without asking permission. I actually felt at the time that I probably needed to ask permission and had been asked to be silent on all fronts. We had friends and multiple people we told no one because of the pressure put on us. So I will say, for the record, I disagree with that now, but I will also say for the record, and this is important, none of those things that I apologized for change the results.
Can you just help me understand that last phrasing?
Yes, I can be sorry the same way I worded it in the email. Again, I don't believe this anymore. I believe that it was immense pressure put on me,
right,
that caused me to see the world in that way and believe I had to apologize. But putting that aside, my apology for involving Ben on the email thread, I have said I do not regret bringing him on board, though. That's the next thing I said, and I still stand by that to this day. And can you read the first part again? Because I've never heard this email.
Yeah, I've spoken with Nathaniel. He's come to the conclusion that he was wrong in the way that he handled this. Is that, presumably you don't feel that way now?
Of course not.
Okay. He acknowledges that Haley should never have set a trap and that he should not have spoken to Ben about the matter.
So are you asking?
Do you still feel that way? I was just curious about, like, because I had never met you, and I'm trying to bring myself up to speed on this, and I'm reading this email, and I'm thinking, I wonder what changed, because here we are 10 years later talking about the same thing that you had retracted.
So are you asking whether I should be sorry that my wife created a fake Facebook page? Because if that is the question, it's unusual that I would be sorry for something I didn't do. I did feel pressured to be apologetic back then for about everything. We had been very speculated upon every little movement that we had made. So yes, at the time I apologized. Honestly, when I look back at that, I see it as absurd, as the victims really in a situation like this being pressured to apologize for something, my wife's actions, which we are one, but she made a decision there and I championed her in that decision, and I still champion her in that decision. In fact, I think my wife is really the hero of this story, and I'm not shied away from that. I believe that she loves prophecy, loves God, and these decisions were made because of that. And yes, I do disagree now with apologizing for that. But again, those apologies, I never apologized for it happening, and I never changed my stance on the record.
Yeah, that's super helpful, Nathaniel. I was just trying to work out what had changed. The other thing that I've never understood, and I don't think it's been brought up, correct me if I'm wrong, is, as I understand it, I can see in the email threads, you guys were willing to submit your devices, and then at some point you guys were not. And I'm curious, what was the decision to not submit your devices?
We never chose to not submit our devices. We have on the record been willing to submit our devices until the end.
But Alyn, you were under the impression for some reason that they were unwilling to, that there was unwillingness on their part, in particular about the devices.
Yeah, I was. I've read about 100 emails in the last week trying to bring myself up to brief on this, and so one of my curiosities was, another email from Pete to Dan. Dan, you're on you can hear what I'm saying. Is, hi Daniel, below's an email I received overnight. Last night I chatted to Ben, and he indicated too he's walking away from pursuing this matter further. Mike, I've heard you say, hey, the reason they walked away was because, Pete made it too onerous. I'm just curious. Unfortunately, Ben's not on the call, so I can't ask him. Why, Nathaniel, did you decide to walk away?
We did not.
Oh, so the email here that I was reading, which was assumed that you don't want to pursue it any further.
I think what really happened, Alyn, is Nathaniel and Haley didn't carry the social currency to make something happen, and Ben did. And when Ben stepped out, there was no longer kind of like a heavyweight in the room.
And also, could I say one thing?
Please.
In the email thread, Peter made it very clear that since Ben had stepped down, his position, you might have this, Mike, I haven't got it in front of me, but it was made very clear that my position in this, I have to find the exact wording, but can you see that anywhere, Haley?
Do you mean his role has come to a conclusion?
Ben advised him that he no longer wished to continue with the investigation of the electronic devices. Now that Ben no longer wishes to the process to continue, I believe my previous role has come to a conclusion. That definitively meant for us that Peter had dropped the investigation, and he went on to say, I now advise you as a father and give you advice. And we basically said we don't agree with the advice. The advice was we cannot agree to, we must not I'm not quoting here, so you can take a look for yourself. So I'm just saying what I remember. We felt that we did not have an option to agree to disagree, nor were we able to have an honourable draw. And I didn't know what that meant since his role had concluded before we had a chance to have any say in the matter. And we simply, at that point, being on staff and very intimidated from the whole thing, submitted to Tom and Catherine and said, we will, you can see the wording there. It's in the email.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, Dan, I know I don't know where you are in the world, so I hope it's not too late for you. But I'm reading the last email I have that kind of just draws this to conclusion is Dan emailing Peter saying, I will leave it to God to sort out from here. I will continue to try my best to stay in love and unity with all that have been involved in this. I will not be continuing any more communication on this matter. So again, as an outsider coming to this, reading the emails, it looked clear to me, Nathaniel, I'm hearing you now 10 years later say, hey, I changed my mind, I regret that. But I think the difficulty is I'm hearing Mike, you say, hey, you browbeat these. I'm putting words in your mouth, Mike. Forgive me, I'm using hyperbole here, but this, as Mike reviews this, it's like, hey, Pete heavy-handedly managed this and beat these guys in a submission, and so they bowed out, and then we don't know why Ben bowed out because he's not on the call, and then Dan, what's the point of Dan staying? And Dan, you can speak up. Whereas I'm over here going, hey, I'm reading the same emails as you, Mike, and I'm coming to a very different conclusion. It looks like Nathaniel is like, hey, guys, I dropped the ball. I made a mistake. I'm deeply sorry. Next domino is Ben saying, hey, I'm bowing out, and then Dan bowing out. So as I look at this, I come to a different conclusion than you, Mike, when you asked me, hey, what are your eyeballs telling you on this? I have the advantage, which is why I love these calls, of listening to Nathaniel give context that isn't in there. But as I'm looking at it, I don't think that Pete is being heavy-handed in this, having read these emails. He's trying to follow an impartial investigation. The people who are bringing the investigation are now saying, we don't want to go through with it. And so it comes to its natural conclusion. I don't know if that helps answer your question that you asked me, Mike.
Alyn, you've got the emails there. Could you maybe read the part from Nathaniel that you thought had him pulling out and showing that he just doesn't want to continue with the investigation, so I can understand that better?
Yeah, to clarify, it isn't an email from Nathaniel. It's an email from Catherine speaking on behalf of Nathaniel. Let me just pull it up, sorry.
But it's the one you already read?
Yeah.
Where does it have Nathaniel? Because you did maintain there at the end, I understand you right, that Nathaniel pulled out. That from the reading of the email, it was like he's going to pull out because he's sorry and he's stopping was the message, right?
Yeah, let me read it to you. Again, so this is an email from Catherine in August. That's why I was interested in the timeline. Because I could understand if this email had come while there's this pressure of like, you guys are the worst, you're on a witch hunt. So it was interesting for me to hear, actually, no, peace had come, your leaders had apologized to you, there was lots of months for that to settle. And then here in August, and again, I understand, Nathaniel, these are not your words. This is Catherine communicating on behalf of you. She says, I have spoken with Nathaniel, and he has come to the conclusion that he was wrong in the way that he has handled this. He acknowledges that Haley should never have set a trap and that he should not have spoken to Ben about the matter. He has apologized to me and will apologize to all involved. I'm glad he recognized this and I'm pleased he's come to this conclusion on his own.
Thank you for that, Alyn. Can I ask one question?
Yeah, of course.
What's the date on that email?
That is the 2nd of August, 2016.
Okay, thank you for that.
And Nathaniel, would you say that represented your heart at the time? Is Catherine misrepresenting you in that email?
I think I felt very pressured to admit some wrongdoing and also was very speculative about my own heart at the time. So I do think at the time I felt like I needed to say nothing to anybody at all. That's what I was very clearly told to do. And so even the thought of talking to Ben, who was a close friend of mine, who came and ministered at Glory City Church, and I drove in the car for many hours, he happened to mention what happened with an intern, and it came up in conversation. He can attest to this, what happened with Gary as a friend to a friend. And if I have to be the one to apologize for talking to one person in the midst of all of this, I think back then I felt like that's fine if I've got to apologize for that. And really what I had to do was to talk to nobody. I no longer believe that. Then I did. So, yes, I apologize for that. And secondly, I think it was a place of, okay, creating a fake Facebook page. It really became, I'm sure others can talk to this, but there was a sense of like, even the idea of creating a fake Facebook page is wrong. It's just very clearly wrong, and no one should ever do that. So I think as well, I felt pressured to say, hey, yeah, we're sorry we ever did that. But I stand by the very last thing I said in the email thread, that I do not regret bringing Ben into this, and my conviction on the matter has never changed. That I believe that although time has passed, the evidence will not disappear and speaks for itself.
Daniel's commented on the side there. I'm going to read what he said. He says, I couldn't be confident in any forensic investigation on devices. How do we know what device was being audited? Factory reset, devices, prophetic notes deleted, and the expectation that I would pay tens of thousands of dollars on an investigation that I would believe would likely be inconclusive close to 6 months after the event. I agree with 100% of that. I think the evidence is already there. The advantage of bringing in somebody is to have someone that all parties agree can speak to the issue. But Alyn, I get it. You're trying to construct like a story through all of these emails and stuff like that. But I think that you're constructing, even with the emails you do have, a very selective story. There's the continual obstacles placed by Peter. There's the dismissive treatment of the evidence. And then there is just the fact that $600 an hour, you guys have to pay for this. Peter tells us that there was this $20,000 on offer, but he didn't tell Nathaniel that. Apparently, at least in the record, in the recorded back and forth where they're negotiating the terms of the investigation, there's no mention of that. The implication is that...
Can I just show this again, Mike? I feel like you're shooting a whole lot of bullets at me, and I don't have an opportunity to reply. You talk about obstacles.
Chime in anytime, Peter. I'm listening.
An open forum. Yeah.
Sorry, Chris?
An open forum. You just jump in and say, can I reply to that?
Can I reply to them? So the obstacles, again, my motive was not to create obstacles. My motive was to establish an impartial approach to two different sides of the story that I was trying to find conclusive answers to. And so, again, I can only appeal to the fact that, Mike, you're describing it as obstacles, but my intent and my motive was not to create obstacles. My intent and motive was working from the presumption that someone's innocent until proven guilty, and that I was not convinced that the evidence that was being presented was enough to prove that he was guilty. And I was trying to reach an objective outside perspective that didn't involve anybody to establish that. So I just, to say that they are obstacles is so far from my reality and from my understanding of what was going on that I just have to say that that's not the case.
Would you suppose if you, let me reply to that, please. If you went to the police and you reported, because you're like the application of like court of law, right? And you reported, my neighbor has been defrauding people, and they said to you, we are going to investigate this, but because your neighbor's innocent till proven guilty, Peter, you have to personally pay for the investigation. Would that be...
So, all right. Yeah, okay, so let me jump in there. So personally pay for the investigation. Again, creating the broader context that I can see Alyn reaching for is that I've got Nathaniel's pastor saying to me that Nathaniel has acknowledged wrongdoing, and that happened in August. So now remember that this is now we're now about 6 months into this thing. So I've got Nathaniel's pastor saying to me that there's stuff going on here that he needed to apologise for. So I'm going, okay, well then that's worthy of investigation. In pursuing that, we've put the $20,000 up. Now, you can continue to appeal to the fact that what's in writing, and I acknowledge that, and I can't refute that. All I'm trying to point to is that there were conversations that Nathaniel wasn't aware of and others weren't aware of that were taking place, because Ben had positioned himself in the conversation as the go-to person in having these conversations. And so we weren't asking Nathaniel to pay for it all. That is not the case.
Let me read from the email and ask you if you can explain it better, Peter. This is from your email to Nathaniel, and you give him several conditions. You say Daniel's inclusion in the investigation is conditional upon, and he gives 6 conditions, and one of them is number 4. As Gary has freely and willingly presented himself to this investigation as a self-proclaimed innocent party and yet to be found guilty, it is only fair that those who are accusing Gary bear the financial responsibility for the investigation. Gary believes that he will need to surrender his iPhone, iPad, MacBook to the investigation, and anticipates that part of the cost of the investigation will include the replacement of these devices at the point at which they are surrendered. At this point, it should be noted that the investigating company charges $600 an hour. Does that or does that not read like they will bear the entire financial burden at $600 an hour, as well as having to purchase new electronic devices for Gary and themselves when they turn theirs in and have to buy their own stuff as well? How is that not wildly unfair?
It's not wildly unfair because I knew that I had presented that there were $20,000 that we were prepared to put up, which is not included in the context.
It's not in the emails, and everybody who is on that email chain says that you never said that to them.
Yeah, that's right.
Isn't it weird that you've said this $20,000 to Ben over the phone, yet at the very end of the conversation you conclude it with, you will bear the full financial cost? Wouldn't you just think to include that in there if that's your summary of your entire position?
Can I jump in here just for a second with a question? Because
I've just asked one, so if I can just wait for that, Alyn, that'd be great.
Of course, Chris.
I can only tell you, I don't have an objective answer, an answer that's going to satisfy you on that one, Chris. I honestly,
you've wrapped it up. You've wrapped it up, and you've said, "Here's my conclusion of everything," and you've put in there, "You guys will bear the full weight. You guys will replace the cost of the devices." And just to let you know, it's $600 an hour. That's the investigating team that I'm selecting. Meanwhile, you're referring to some conversation, who knows when, with Ben. The Ben doesn't even remember. Wouldn't you have thought, if that was a serious concern, I mean, you put that on your public statement, that this was a major piece that you were presenting, like, hey, we've put in $20K. Wouldn't you have concluded that, if that was really your heart at the time, to let them know that they're not going to have to bear the full financial cost if you and Graham Cook were ready to do that?
That's one way of describing the events that we're talking about, absolutely.
How would you describe it?
I don't have an explanation for it, other than the fact that there was a broader context in which the conversations were taking place and that information was available elsewhere. That's all I'm saying.
I can't find that elsewhere, including the source of the information, but okay.
There's more.
Before we go,
Peter,
more,
you required that they give you the information that they wanted to find.
Mike Alyn was going to.
Okay, I apologize, Alyn. Please.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I love your question, and I appreciate Pete's honesty in saying, "Hey, I can't give you an objective answer." And I would like to offer subjective observations, not an answer, because again, I wasn't there. But as somebody who's immersed himself in this reading, it would. In fact, Mike, did you read that email? The bit about, hey, we'd expect to bear the cost. Can you tell me the date of that, just so I know where it fits in the timeline? And the reason I'm asking for that, Chris, is simply that this process, by its very nature, grew. You know, it had a life to it. There was emails back and forth. Things were refined. And I just want to know, where did that land in the timeline?
Right at the end.
Do you have a date on that email?
I didn't have it up.
While you were having a conversation at some point, I was trying to find, I'm almost positive, but I couldn't find it, the email where Graham says, I would like to put up money. They were discussing who's going to bear the costs. And I was like, well, we have something in writing. And I realized it probably wouldn't help because...
Yeah, I searched and searched for that, and I could not find any record of it.
Yeah. And I couldn't in this call, but for some odd reason, I think I can remember it. Do you have that date, Chris or Mike?
No, I don't have it with me. I just remember it was as everyone was wrapping up and Ben's out and there's a conclusion there. Dan had capped the position as well, I believe, articulated Peter's position at the end.
The reason I'm questioning whether that, if you give me a phrase for it, I can put it into my database and probably find the email pretty quick.
Yeah. The phrase is, how about put, once the final report is delivered? That's a phrase right there. The one I'm reading from was from Daniel to Peter in reply to his email. And so that date of that email is August 31st. But I'm looking for the original Peter email, not just the reply, which would have that timestamp as well.
I'm looking at that. Brings up an email from Dan to Peter. Sorry, guys. Where I was going with this is I'd be so curious to know where that landed in the chain of events, because it could very well have been like, hey guys, this is going to be the cost. And as Pete and Graham are talking about, they're like, well, hey, let's cover it. That's all I was looking for. I was just offering.
The 1st of August.
1st of August.
Thank you.
I don't have that email. But if it's what I was looking for is what was the context in which that was communicated. That's all. So sorry, I didn't add much to the conversation.
Yeah, it just concluded like a bit of a summary of, okay, guys, well, here's where we're at, sort of a context. Yeah,
talk amongst yourselves. I'll find it.
Yeah, I had a question, Alan, that I asked just at the start.
Yeah.
If someone came to you and said, hey, we suspect this is happening.
Yeah.
There's a guy that let's just a hypothetical third party. What would you need to see?
I think the evidence that Mike pointed to in the case of Sean, was fascinating. I'm thinking particularly of the word of knowledge that he called out. Mike, you'll remember this.
I just froze. I'm so sorry, everyone, and I caught nothing of your response.
It was profound, and everybody's at peace now. So
everything got solved.
Yeah. I think the easiest way for me to answer that would be, I've listened to a lot of conversations go back and forth, and I can't help but wonder if we miss each other because we're saying different words and assuming we mean the same thing. So, for example, one of the phrases that have been brought up over and over again, Mike, you impassionately said to us, guys, evidence, you said facts were brought to you. And I would say facts were not brought to us, claims were brought to us, and we need to work out what do those claims point to. So, for example, I've did someone say something?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I was just saying that's still going back to the situation. I'm just asking you for a hypothetical.
Yeah, I'm getting there. Sorry.
Okay, sorry.
You insert a coin in this jukebox, please. So the narrative that we've come to is, hey, when we looked at all these Facebook words, what do you know? They're everything that Gary called out. Ergo, he must have used Facebook to call these out. But if you could consider for a moment, if a true prophet of the Lord was calling out accurate information, why would we be surprised that Facebook confirms if it's accurate words?
Yeah, so
I think you're missing the details.
What would you need to see to believe that this person, if someone in your church community came to you and said, I believe person X is getting words off Facebook,
yeah,
you would say, well, hang on, let's not jump to conclusions here. What is it that you would need to see to say, aha, you're right?
I would need to go to the scriptural definition of a false prophet. Do these people lead other people away from Jesus? Are these people a fraud? Do they live one way but live a different way? And do they make stuff up? Those would be my 3 tests that I would look for if I'm going to call somebody a false prophet.
What if you just need to say that they were guilty of faking prophecy?
The trouble is with everybody living, well, see, the things, I don't have a good litmus test for you, because obviously the evidence or the claims of evidence that you're putting forth, I've come to a very different conclusion than you have. Part of that is because I've witnessed Gary demonstrate astonishing accurate words of knowledge without any access to, either it predates social media, or it was events where there's no way that he could have known he was going to meet that person to look up that information.
There's nothing really that a person could give you specifically. You don't know.
Well, I like the example that Mike used with Sean Bowles, that Sean had called out a person and an address. What was it? He called out one thing and got it. It was like, oh, this is good. And then said another statement and they didn't respond to that and then moved on. And when you looked at Facebook, you saw, okay, this is clear evidence that he was looking at something that wasn't the same thing.
A different person?
Yeah, it was. So for anybody who doesn't know, the context was Bowles called out a woman and then he said, I'm getting Psalm 105. I feel like 105, does 105 slaughterhouse mean anything to you? And she says, no. And he goes, well, pray about it. And he had called out a few pieces of information that were accurate about her that were on her Facebook. But if you Googled her name in the same area where this event was happening, there was a woman with her name who lived at 105 slaughterhouse. It was just a different lady, right? It was, or the mother's name, but it was a different person. So he had a real address for a person of the same name who lived in the region, but it wasn't the woman he was talking about, implying that he Googled it, right? It was very strong evidence, in my opinion. And I think that what trumps that is the fake Facebook page with the name and birthday and a comment, and then Gary calls it out. Like, this is the smoking gun of smoking guns. This is how they caught. I mean, this is how they caught Chris Reed in the first place. It was because they made changes to Facebook pages, and then Chris Reed went and dug him up and looked him up, and then was caught out. And it was still didn't get exposed and didn't get stopped or anything like that because of the culture that's there. But this is it, man. You call out information that any reasonable person would conclude you dug up on Facebook. That's all you need. That's all the evidence you need. And it's not just like your life's on Facebook. No. It's like, I say you're a dancer. Your Facebook photo is you dancing. I say you play guitar. Your Facebook photo is you playing guitar. It's surface level. Everything corresponds perfectly with the public available information. This is a no-brainer. I think if you guys can't see it, you're the wrong people to investigate it. And that guys like Gary tend to surround themselves with just the right people who will never really hold them accountable. It's like a survival mechanism. You can't have people around you who will truly hold you accountable because you'll never survive. So you have to surround yourself with the right people.
Mike, I have to appeal to the fact that we've always said that if somebody looking at it objectively is going to come to the same conclusions that you come to. We've never resolved from that. We've never said anything different to that. Gary has always owned that. I have owned that in the process. We agree with you. Objectively, the conclusions that you've come to are what any person would come to.
Okay, I appreciate that you're sharing that, and I think that's a great deal of transparency that you're sharing that, and it's wonderful. It is not what you've always said to people, as I've quoted you multiple times to different people, telling them very different things. Shall I read the quote to Victoria about the evidence, how it all being false and proven wrong?
No, you've already read that. I hear what you're saying. Yep.
So again, you're telling me things that aren't true. You said we've always acknowledged that any objective person would see the evidence and come to the same conclusion you just came to, Mike. Alyn says there is no evidence. There's just claims. You guys are not on the same page. I don't know where you guys are at.
Yeah, again, it feels like a semantic conversation, and so that's all fine. That's all good.
It's not semantic. These aren't just claims, Alyn. This is evidence. There's a Facebook page that's called evidence. There's a word that he shared that's called evidence. There's witness testimony. That's called evidence. In court, testimony, which is claims, is submitted as evidence. That's the nature of things. The only person I've had in a very long and annoying debate tell me claims aren't evidence is Matt Dillahunty, the atheist, because he was trying to debunk the idea that Christ rose from the dead. And he didn't like the witness testimony. But witness testimony is actually how a lot of things are decided in court, because claims are evidence. This person says this happened. That's evidence of something. We have to now assess, is there another witness? Is there ulterior motive? How much does it stack up? And you guys are saying right here, at least Peter just did, that an objective person looks at this evidence and goes, yeah, it looks like he did this. That's all you need.
Yeah. And Peter's now acknowledging, obviously, which is good, that it is evidence. When before you said that you never received any evidence, and now you say, well, if anyone looked at this evidence, yeah, sure, they're going to believe that. When you have a private meeting, with Glorious Gospel Church, you're saying to them, like, yeah, we were never presented any evidence. It's interesting. Alyn, you're saying that what you would need to see would be a Facebook call out of the wrong same name person. So you're still
I'm not saying that, I'm holding to like the 3 biblical strands for the test of a false prophet. Because
so you're changing your thoughts on, because before, a moment ago, maybe I misheard you. It sounded like you said, look, if something like the Sean Bowles situation came up where it was a completely wrong person, that would kind of be what I would need to see. Is that?
Yeah, that would meet one of the 3 criteria. So one of the 3 criteria is they make stuff up, which, I would be happy to put data mining as a make stuff up. But as I've already pointed out, the difficulty with appealing to Facebook for, oh my gosh, there's no way anybody could be this accurate. Look at this information that's easily found on Facebook. But I would also say, if it's true, of course it would be listed on Facebook.
How do you explain, can I just ask, how do you explain Sarah and the 10th of June being called out, no other email existing to prove that there is a Sarah Lamberty, and Gary calling out the exact name, date of a Facebook page that only had about 12 comments on there? I just, how do you explain that?
Well, I'm in the fortunate position that I don't really need to explain it, Nathaniel, but I will tell you a story of something I saw that was astonishing, and that Gary was ministering at a church I was pastoring at.
Well, Alyn, I want to stop you there, because this is actually the whole point. Earlier you were asked by Chris, what evidence would you need? And you said, that's a great question. Hey, Mike, what evidence would you need? And you deferred back to me. And then now you're asked again, what evidence would you need to confirm that Gary's guilty of the things he's accused of? And you're pivoting to, what would I need to officially label him as a false prophet, given 3 tests that I feel I've derived from the text of Scripture? And we're just saying guilty, not guilty. Like, what would you need to show that he did this? And you're making it a much bigger claim so that it's harder to prove. And then now he says, what would you do with this evidence? And you go, let me tell you a story of something that happened that you guys weren't around to see that involved Gary. And this is how we silence our own minds from approaching and dealing with the facts that are before us. And the facts before us are pretty clear. Like, it's pretty clear. Gary's guilty. Like, it's a reasonable conclusion that he's guilty, and that you guys have been doing cover-up culture for him for a long, long time. And these people who are on the call, even the ones not on the call, but who are wanting to be aware of the call right now, like Ben, who's probably sleeping right now. It's whatever, dark 30. They're for no benefit of their own are seeking to try to hold, for the sake of the integrity of the church, hold Gary accountable. And it's Alyn and Peter that will not let that happen. And Gary sits here silent and makes you guys do it all for him. And it's an atrocity. It's an absolute atrocity.
I've answered when you've asked me questions.
You've answered with, I don't know. That's your answer to everything. And then maybe it's a conspiracy. Maybe it's a massive, like, long conspiracy where someone created an email account. They hacked me. They made it look like it was connected with me. Then they made this Sarah Lamberty email, and they sent it out. That would have initially, to most people, would have just defended you. But because people decided to follow it up, then it made you look bad. And that was part of like a big scheme. And of course you got hacked. So, that can't be traced. Come on.
But it can, because I've got the screenshots that I was hacked, Mike. And again, I go back to, how can I send up an email and send it when I'm at dinner with people at 8:50? And then another email was sent from Glory City that changed the timestamp on it.
Is your wife capable of sending an email?
I am very capable of sending.
And you weren't there, so that's not an alibi.
I was very sick. I was pregnant with Emma.
And so again, we peel back. That's why Peter, in his position, wanted the forensic evidence, because again, it's this place, and I will hold to. I did not data mine, and I did not look up events, things, and stuff. I don't need to do that. And again, I appeal to the place where you labeling me the same as Sean Bolts. Yes, we were friends for a season, but when questionable practices of his prophetic ministry, particularly with the marriage stuff, which again is out of prophetic protocol, we took him aside and said, Sean, you can't do that. And then he contacted us and wanted us to do a whole session on words of knowledge. And I said, Sean, I can't do that. I'm happy to do a session on boundaries and protocol, but we're not doing words of knowledge. And from that point, he cut us out of it.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
And again, try to appeal to him.
So I've got a bit of lag here. Can I ask you some questions, Gary?
Absolutely.
So at one point you mentioned that you never tried to paint anyone as like being false accusers. Did I hear that right? Or are you saying that you never went out to try to paint Nathaniel and Haley as being false?
I never mentioned names.
You never mentioned names, but you would. So are you saying that you mentioned earlier, but I'm not sure if I heard you, that you said something about, I never painted anyone as any of this as a false allegation. I've only tried to be open and willing, submit devices. I'm never saying anyone's making false claims. Or did I mishear that? Or
mishear that? I didn't say that. I said,
okay.
the
other question
when people ask me about this, I never mentioned names.
Well, you know what, Chris, can we come back to your question in a second?
Yeah.
Pretend the people just knew who you were talking about. What did you imply about Nathaniel, and others, Haley or others, Ben, even though you didn't use their names? You keep saying I didn't mention names, but if I was to get a hold of a pastor who you've talked to privately about all this stuff and say, what did he tell you about these individuals who he didn't name, what would that be?
Well, it's clear as when Catherine came to me with the accusation, I said, who brought the accusation? And initially she wouldn't say it. I said, I'm happy to meet these people. I'm open to meet them and would love to meet them. And I did meet them. And again, I didn't see in that meeting attack or hostility or stuff like that, because I didn't posture myself as hostile. I postured myself in a way of just to discover why they did what they did. And Mike, you can paint it as righteous and stuff like that, but it's unrighteous behavior. And I asked the question and wanted to discover that. And
what was unrighteous
in the dialogue? Who asked the question?
Sorry, what was unrighteous behavior?
Setting up a fake Facebook page.
Is it unrighteous when police do a sting or they catch a drug dealer because they set up a fake drug purchase?
So we're back and forth here on biblical versus mammon. And so we have to be clear, are we talking biblical here or are we talking secular? Because again,
the only morality I'm ever talking about is real morality,
which is biblical morality.
Mm-hmm. Was it unbiblical when Hagar sent the spies out?
Biblical morality or secular morality?
There's only one morality. I don't know what you're talking about. So
biblical,
I just asked you: is it immoral when police set up a sting operation?
So we're outside the church or inside the church. That's why I'm trying to differentiate what we're talking, because there's two different realities.
Just be clear with maybe your answer is if you're not in the church you can do that, but if you're in the church you can't. Maybe that's your answer. I just wanted to know what your thought is here, so you can understand the accusation.
I follow, you follow, we follow biblical precedents, and there's biblical truths we hold to. Would you agree?
When the church in China meets inside like a cornfield so that they won't be attacked, they're in the church and they're deceiving people about whether they are meeting and what they're meeting for. Is that biblical or unbiblical?
Why are they deceiving people?
So they won't be persecuted.
So it's a way of looking at that.
Yeah. No, she was right. Haley's a hero.
Okay.
I had another question.
You don't like it because you got caught, Gary. It's obvious, man. Come on.
Man.
Sorry, Chris, back to you.
No, you're right. Sorry, we'll leave the false painting people as false. That's okay. So Nathaniel and Haley apologized to you probably days later, I would say maybe 3-4 days later on the phone. And immediately after that, you were on the phone to Pastor Catherine, and you had one request, which was that they delete the Glory City Church comment of you appearing at Glory City Church that had that fake Facebook person saying, "Oh, I can't wait to be there." That was your only request. Make sure you get rid of that. I'm just wondering, if you have nothing to hide and you got this genuinely from the Holy Spirit, why would that be your request? Why would you care whether or not Glory City or some page said, "Hey, I'm excited to come"? Why did you make that request?
I don't remember making that request, Chris.
You don't?
No, it was 10 years ago. I don't remember that. I don't even remember that conversation.
Yeah, well, there were 3 people within earshot of that, and subsequently that was deleted. So I just found that a very interesting request, but yeah, you have no recollection?
If I was to surmise, it would be probably to cover Nathaniel and Haley, because they had apologized. Yeah, because that was my heart, and again, whether they agree or disagree, my posture in that meeting wasn't one of accusation, but was one of care. And that's why I didn't deflect, I didn't defend. I just wanted to discover what was going on for them. At one point in that meeting, when I asked Nathaniel a question about it, about whether it was the only one, he turned around and said to Catherine, "You told us to do this." And at that point, Catherine shot back and attacked Nathaniel, and in that place. And so, because she denied, she said she didn't do that. And so, again, if there was hostility in that meeting, the only hostility came from Catherine when Nathaniel said that she told them to do it.
This happened about 4 days after that meeting on a phone call. It was an apology from Nathaniel. But yeah, you don't remember.
No.
Okay.
And I'll just say as well that I imagine both Catherine and I would disagree with that played out like that.
Yeah,
guys, I suggest that we land this plane, because right now it feels like we're circling to land.
Right. Listen. Sorry, go ahead. If anybody has any final things they'll share, and then I'll wrap it up, and we'll take a few minutes and let everybody, if they have anything they want to say still.
Yeah, I did. So you put in your public statement on your blog that you didn't have any sexual relations with this person. Publicly, you admitted what was and wasn't to take place. So that's still your position, is it? That you didn't have a let's say an all-out sexual affair?
What? Sorry, Chris. What are we talking about?
Just on your blog post. It was interesting, to be honest with you, because it was exactly the same as your Facebook post in relation to the GGC allegations. The start read the same. So the first few times I went to read it, I felt like I'd already read this. I didn't need to continue. But at the end, you acknowledged that there was some sexual impropriety, although there wasn't a physical sexual line that was crossed. Is that's still your...
Yeah, absolutely. We never had sex.
Yep. Okay. And then Peter, when Dan called you and just asked you if you were aware of the allegations, your first response to him was no. Is that correct?
My first response to him was, I was driving my car, I was in traffic, I was trying to understand what it was that he was talking to. And as we went along in the conversation, I realised what he was talking about.
So it was all. So your first response was no. I hadn't heard of that, or I wasn't aware of that.
My first response was I wasn't aware of Gary being accused of having a sexual relationship with someone.
You weren't aware of Gary being accused of having a sexual relationship?
I'm not quite sure what you're reaching for here, Chris. Tell me what you're trying to reach for.
Well, to me, there was a call that was made, and I'm just trying to get clarity from you without hearsay, I guess, that was asking you if you were aware of that situation, and your first response being, no, I wasn't aware.
Well, I think we need to go have Daniel either communicate on the text or actually joined the conversation. I'd need to revisit exactly what the question was, but I do recall that after pulling into my garage and realising, oh, that's what he's talking about. And so what I heard Daniel saying to me was, are you aware that Gary has had a sexual relationship with someone? And I said, no, I'm not. But then when I pulled into the garage, I went, oh, he's probably referring to the sexually inappropriate relationship that Gary's talked to me about. So that's the best answer I can give to you, Chris. I'm not.
Okay, yeah, because there were screenshots that were taken by the person that I guess was the husband at the time, and all their family can testify. I think there was about 8 of them that have a text message that said, or they read from Gary, basically, and sorry to be graphic, but I can't wait to sleep with you again, was the text. I mean, this divorce happened over this situation, and so I'm just feeling like maybe the public statement wasn't the whole story. If there was something like that, can you speak to that, Gary, about sending that specific text message?
Yeah, I never slept with Denise, and hand on heart, I can say that we never had sex, and without being graphic, there wasn't, when we were together, there wasn't an arousal on my part, and so, yeah, I never slept with him.
From the husband, they said that they saw the message from you about sleeping together again and about being in the shower. There was a bunch of them that seemed to connote the opposite story.
Had a shower, never had a shower. The only times that we connected was probably 3 times when I was in Wales, but that never had sex.
Okay. I think that's all my questions for now. Thanks, guys.
Anybody else? Daniel has a question. Sorry, Daniel has a question he's asking there. He says, why was Gary allowed to continue to minister?
I think we shared that in 2008, when I admitted what I'd done to Sarah, and then subsequently called our oversight at that time when we were in America. They gave us the worst advice possible, was don't talk about it. Forgive and move on. You know, it's between you and your wife. There's forgiveness and move on. And we subsequently, after 6 months, realized that was not the best advice. And so we went to RTF, went and saw ministry, and also as well jumped into counseling together.
Oh, no, wait, that was afterwards. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
We did try to get help as best as we had, but we were very young.
Yeah.
And
22.
Didn't have any tools, unfortunately, and it was unfortunately a cover-up. If you want to say there was a cover-up, that was a cover-up. I felt like I was silenced at the time as well. But after, was it 2018, when you reconnected over Messenger, they were in different countries. It was only 3 weeks of messaging. Highly inappropriate, and it broke my heart, I'm going to be honest. But it actually gave us, I'm just speaking from a wife's perspective, it was actually the best thing that ever happened to us, because we actually got the help that we needed. And Gary spent nearly 4 years once we actually looked back at the counselling, and I'm not whitewashing, and he doesn't whitewash what he did. I
share about it now in kind of weekends. I shared it in Doha when I was there with the church.
And at the time we cancelled all external ministry, and we were already halfway through SOP at the time. And the wisdom at the time was only finish this out, which I took on the lead role in that position. And I guess for whatever reason, we can always split hairs of process, and you can always look back and go, yes, we did it right, yes, we did it wrong. There's always objective responses. In hindsight, it's always 2020, but Gary was very much involved in that process, and there was moments of pride, I'm not going to lie, but at the end of the day, that pride was just there to cover the shame of what he'd done. And he absolutely was repentant and kept to the process exactly anything that I asked of him, anything Pete asked of him. Alyn and AJ were very much involved in that process at the time. And then I also had external help myself outside of that time. So the reason why was the decision at that moment, because he was responsive to the process, and it was very much a joint request.
Okay. Daniel, if you wanted to follow up with something, you're welcome to do so. I just want to open up again, if there's anybody else who has something they want to share before I kind of close us up. I have a couple things I want to say. Peter, Alyn, Gary.
I'm all good, thank you.
Yeah, I just appreciate everybody making time for this. It wasn't easy to coordinate everybody's schedule. I can totally understand where you're coming from. I'm deeply sorry, Nathaniel and Haley, that you experienced flack for what you thought you were doing was the right thing. That's not a pleasant experience for anybody. So thank you for creating space to hear us out. We did request the meeting. There was no need for you to do that, but I'm grateful that you did. And I hope you got what you needed, Mike.
Yeah, and I would say that to Nathaniel and Haley, I wasn't aware of what you guys were walking through, and what was coming against you in that sort of space, and so I'm sorry that happened. I'm sorry.
I'm going to add, just Daniel, you guys can see in the chat, he said if they knew, above question, if they knew of his inappropriate contact, why was he allowed to continue to minister? I'm not sure of other context that Daniel has around that, so I'm just reading what he wrote. Is there anything anybody wants to add to that?
I think just what we put in the public statement, that all his external ministry stopped, and only taught within the local church, the local school that they had. And then Pete, at some point, you, after a certain time of his counseling, let him start traveling again. Is that my correct understanding?
Yeah. Yep.
What was the time period of that, if I can, where he wasn't allowed to externally minister?
I can't comment without any accuracy, given that when it was in the past. So Gary and Sarah, can you comment?
We may have mentioned that in the public statement, Chris.
Okay.
I think. No. You got to remember. Oh, hang on. Again, I'm useless with time, because there was the initial thing that happened. When was that? 2008.
8 years.
Yeah, we knew none of that until the 2018. I think we make a comment about that on the public statement about the 2018 thing, Chris.
I'm trying to scan it, and it looks like you said in 2018, and it doesn't give specific times. He then began weekly counseling with a licensed psychologist. During this time, Gary ceased all international travel and reduced his ministry involvement to helping teach at their school, while Sarah oversaw. In 2019, with Peter's supervision, Gary returned to limited national, international ministry. So it would be some point in 2019 is the statement.
As when he wouldn't have been, as when the sort of restrictions on external ministry would have been 2019?
It would have been lifted at some point in 2019 and imposed at some point in 2018. They don't give months or anything here.
And then these prophetic meetings, these internal house prophetic meetings you're allowed to continue at, were they filmed, or were they just totally in-house, not a live stream thing?
It wasn't a live stream. We didn't do.
But we did do. They're all.
Oh, they recorded. Yeah, they filmed it.
Recordings. Yeah, because I believe you were ministering at a church in December 2018. So that's where I was confused if there was some sort of external ministry cap as to
That
why
would have
you
been
would.
taking students for presbytery to that.
No, this was
church.
like a public church meeting where you were prophesying over somebody, I believe. I can try and track that down, and I can shoot it to you in an email. I'll try and follow up with that. But it seemed to be right smack bang in the middle. If it was at some point 2018 that this restriction came on, and
Chris,
then lifted in 2019.
I think we talked about that because when we were writing this, Gary was going through his Instagram to go, hey, I'm trying to work out, the timing of all this because, again, a long time ago. And you did flag one thing, and then I think it was a hub. I don't know if you're familiar with their School of Prophets. I've heard it characterized as an at-home meeting, but they had a school, and there's hubs that their school operates in. And I think in the context of that meeting, and again, you'll work out, Chris, when you look at the timing, because I think we talked about that, oh, wait, there was this trip. Why was I on that trip? I think that was related to the School of Prophets. So it would fall under that remit of, reducing his travel to just teach at their school.
Right.
All right. Well, I'm grateful for everybody making the time to come out. This was hard for all of us across all these countries to try to get schedules going, and I'm grateful that everybody sat through, even when I choose to be intense for a good reason, I think. As it stands, my own assessment of it is unchanged, and I imagine a lot of people at this meeting, your own assessment of the situation is unchanged. What I did try to do is create a public, or I should say a permanent record of some specifics and some details. And it's deeply disturbing that Peter is in any way involved with holding Gary accountable, and he should not be. And you've misrepresented things many times, repeatedly, in this meeting and to others, and even recently, about these issues. And whether you want to say that, if you want to say, well, Mike, you can't go to his motives, then fine. How about this? Whatever the reason is, you're not the guy. If there's someone to hold this guy accountable, it's not you. Alyn, I'm not sure if you're the guy. If you have an actual true third-party independent investigation who can report without accountability to you guys, then you can try to move forward with that. But in my own assessment of things, and I think this is shared by a lot of people outside of the circle of you guys right here, I think this is Ben's view. My understanding is that it's Daniel's view, that it's everybody on this call, is that the evidence is already overwhelming. There's already overwhelming, convincing evidence. And if this was to go really wide public, showing all the evidence, you yourselves have acknowledged that objectively people are going to be like, yeah, he's guilty. Look at him. And it's just astonishing. I think that what we're seeing is the same thing all over again, where you're just dug in too much and you just can't quit. And so we tell ourselves convenient truths, convenient lies sometimes to try to keep on going and pushing on. But anyways, I appreciate especially Nathaniel, Haley, Chris, Daniel. I appreciate you guys, and Ben too, sticking his neck out and getting swatted for it. I appreciate that. But this is absolutely not resolved in any way, because the buck stops with Peter McHugh and with Alyn. And it's the people who are supposed to hold Gary accountable, and you guys tell yourselves cute stories about these things instead of dealing with the truth. That's my honest opinion. And I think that if you were to even attempt to seriously investigate Gary, you would never have written, we have not received additional concerns about the integrity of Gary's ministry in 10 years. It's not factually true. How do I even know about concerns you've received? I'm not even there. I haven't even asked people for information. It just comes, and it wasn't just one or two. There's it's a whole other thing to get into. The whole church where you prophesied about it and it ends up being this really abusive scenario, and they used your prophecy to help prop up this leader. Anyway, so you guys, I'll end our meeting. I'm grateful for everybody who being part of it, and at the same time, I'm going to pray about what to do next. I was just going to do a post on social media and then leave it alone and hope that the ball would roll, because there was overwhelming evidence and the leaders just needed to be public and speak about it. But since then, I don't know if anybody's publicly spoken about it. It seems like nobody has. As far as leaders go, has anybody?
GGC put out a statement basically saying, we don't know. this sort of stuff has come to us and this sort of stuff has come to us, and we don't have any formal conclusion, but what we know, sort of thing. It's been the only movement.
Well, the accountability should come from within you guys. You're as leaders. You're the guys he's looking to help him out and hold him accountable. It should come from there. And if it won't come from there, then I say it should come from anywhere as Christians, because the church cannot bear up under the weight of fake prophecy. It just can't. So I guess that'll end our meeting then. So thank you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Editor Mike here for my very last time, and just want to say this video would not have been needed if leaders had just done the right thing, and that is the point of this video. It's piecemeal work if I target one guy after another and just kind of try to take down one. No, what I need to do, hopefully, God willing, is help be part of a larger movement where tons and tons and tons of Christians are saying, we want biblical accountability. We want, when those elders are persisting in sin, to rebuke them in the presence of all and to have no fear to do this, because it will cause the rest of the church to be purified in the process. We will have no fear of man, we will have fear of God, and that fear of God will purify the church. This is not enjoyable work. This is not fun stuff. This is not entertainment. This is about stoking an actual revival in the charismatic church, one that brings us back to what Scripture says about honesty and integrity and purity and holiness and accountability. If we do it, it's going to bring, I believe, beautiful, beautiful fruit. And all it takes is the people who know stuff to say stuff.